Hello and welcome back everyone, we Weeb Online, and today I'm gonna continue the story What If Naruto Was the Golden Wolf of Konoha Part 2. If you enjoy this video, please give it a big thumbs up, and to watch more videos like this, subscribe to my channel and turn that bell notification on so you never miss an upload. Now wasting no more time, let's begin.
After leaving the clearing with his two advisors, the Hokage returned right away to his office to talk about crucial issues involving Naruto and the assignment of academy graduates to teams. Without delay, Sarutobi proceeded to his desk, took a seat, lit his pipe, and took a long draw before beginning his work. To start things off, I think the three of us would agree that Naruto no longer needs to be trained in his bloodline since the Moon Wolf clan will take care of it for us. This was acknowledged by Tsunade and Jiraiya. It makes sense that the greatest person to teach a werewolf his skills would be a wolf summon. However, Tsunade will still continue to monitor Naruto's health to make sure that the evolution that Fenrir-sama mentioned doesn't result in anything harmful for the boy. Tsunade nodded and scribbled some notes on a piece of paper about the latest changes in Naruto's lineage. Next on the list is to come up with balanced and workable teams from the graduates. It will be uneven this time around since Danzo slipped in one of his root trainees to keep an eye out for the Uchiha. The boy is showing signs of defection and treason due to how the civilian council pampered him. I noticed that he changed after his friendship with Naruto, but I know that wounds run deep when it involves a Uchiha, so the root agent will be keeping an eye out just in case the worst comes to pass. Jiraiya joked, looking at the personal information of all the passers, sensei, including Naruto. There are a total of 28 who passed the academy exam. So there is an odd one out. As the head of the village's information gathering, he had easy access to the files. Correct, Tsunade. Were you able to scope out genins who are capable of becoming medics in their respective squads? Replied Sarutobi. Tsunade, brooding over the rosters she had in her hospital office, rested the tip of her pen on her lower lip. The most important prerequisite for a medic nin is chakra control. From the file you gave me on the students, only 3 have that capability. Yamanaka Ino, Haruno Sakura, and Hyuga Hinata. I can train the others, but none have these 3's potential. I might even take one of them as my apprentice depending on how they absorb the lessons or how they react during missions. Sarutobi gave a nod. Given her familiarity with Tsunade, she was already prepared with a strategy for acquainting the 3 candidates with medical terminology. Good. I have changed the rules in team assignment and removed the requests from the Junin senseis to avoid favoritism. Aside from the teams that I have already placed there on the paper included in the folder, I placed much debate when it comes to the clan heirs since they all have specialized abilities. To start, the Infiltration and Capture team composed of Yamanaka Ino, Nara Shikamaru, and Akamichi Choji. We will recreate the Ino Shikacho with them. So Ino will be the team medic since you will be training her at least twice a week with the rest of the girls. Sanin both nodded, realizing that their unique skills complemented one another. Next we have is the Information Gathering and Detection teams composed of Aburame Shino, Hyuga Hinata, and Kiba Inuzuka. All their abilities are perfect for this role. The Hokage was informed. With their different clan abilities, the 3 would make an ideal tracking team, as the 2 Sanin could not deny. Last but not the least is the most important team, which will be comprised of the Uchiha and Haruno Sakura. Naruto was supposed to be on this team since this will a frontline, heavy attack squad. But the inclusion of Danzo's agent will require me to remove Naruto and to assign him in an apprenticeship. Tsunade regarded this pairing with a raised eyebrow. Why remove Naruto? He would be the perfect frontline fighter that could easily complement the team. Judging from his abilities, he is basically a one-man army with his clones that have the same abilities as the original. Jiraiya agreed with Tsunade's response. They all witnessed how Genjutsu and his clones in the Forest of Death were completely destroyed by the shadow clones of the young werewolf. If the Golden Werewolf were somewhat skilled in ninjutsu, there would be no denying the absolute devastation he could wreak. Even in his human form, he was a chakra powerhouse capable of using powerful techniques with the ease of peanuts. Hokage gave a nod. True, but Naruto's pack mentality will be a hindrance if Sasuke defects from the village. For Naruto, such relationship could spell disaster for him if such a situation occurs. So no, Naruto is not practical for this scenario with the Uchiha involved despite the friendship they created with each other. Sai, on the other hand, knows his mission well and have the training needed to stop Sasuke if such situation occurs. Tsunade and Jiraiya reluctantly nodded in response to the explanation. It is true that Uchihas have a tendency to become power-hungry, and Sasuke is the obvious candidate, so they will have to pass on including Naruto in the squad. Sasuke will be instantly killed by Naruto if he betrays. Otherwise, his instinct would not have it. Jiraiya made the decision to express his worries. So if Naruto is the odd man out, what do you plan to do with him? It wouldn't be a good idea to let him wait for the next batch of graduates since that would severely pull down the village's manpower. His newfound abilities and the power of his summons is a great help if an Air S-class situation occurs. Jiraiya sighed. I could take the Gaki as my apprentice as I promised Minato when he was alive. The Hokage rejected the concept right away. No, Jiraiya. You have your own responsibilities in the village, as well as outside with the spy network. Besides, you can still teach the boy from time to time without having to complicate your already busy schedule. I was thinking of giving him to Mitarashi Anko. The Toad and Slug Sannin looked at their sensei incredulously at this revelation. What? Why her? Jiraiya exclaimed. Even though Naruto was extremely attractive, he found it hard to believe that his sensei would place her under the cruel Anko. Jiraiya grinned mischievously, presumably conjuring up images of the blonde being subjected to various sexual scenarios given his physique. I have my reasons, Jiraiya. 1. Anko can easily train Naruto in the skills needed in the field. Assassination, demolition, even seduction if his new physique is anything to go by. The two disregarded this. 2. Since Naruto is primarily short to mid-range and Anko can readily make up for long range, which Naruto undoubtedly lacked, both complement each other. Finally, it would go nicely with Naruto's new rank. With a sly smile, the Hokage added the final sentence. At this, Tsunade arched an eyebrow. Rank? I assumed that you desired for Naruto to be a genin. Even with his skill, it would be unfair to the other graduates, and it is still too early for him to be promoted to Chunin. Oh no, smirked Sarutobi. Tsunade, you didn't understand me. I'm going to give him the title of Tokubetsu Genin. I just made this new one a few hours ago after witnessing Naruto and Genjutsu spar. My logic is very straightforward. Tokubetsu ranks are primarily reserved for individuals with particular expertise. Both Anko and Iruka belong in this group. Naruto is unquestionably a Tokubetsu due to his unique set of skills and abilities. He will be a Tokubetsu Genin. A rank above Genins but beneath Chunin, because he is a Genin. How do you feel? Sannin's cheeky smile reminded them of their sensei. After all, brilliant minds think alike. The Moon Wolf clan boss trained Naruto for the next 3 days, teaching him a wolf-style crash course on the many abilities of his summons to help him in battle, infiltration, stealth, and assassination. The Moon Wolf clan was an all-arounder summon that specialized in practically anything, the blonde werewolf learning that the exception might be battles involving water because they are not swimmers. That night, Naruto slept to allow his body to recuperate in preparation for his early training. When he inquired about the process of changing back to his human form, Fenrir advised him to remain in his werewolf form, allowing his body to adjust to the change as it had done for his ancestors. Fenrir also informed him that he would receive instruction on how to change back when they reached the final day of training. The first day was a straightforward orientation to the Moon Wolf clan, during which he met a number of wolves who possessed unique skills to aid him in his missions. After being introduced to the clan, Naruto quickly developed a preference for certain units. His top choice was the Heavy Assault Unit, which consists of 5 wolves. Genjutsu, also known as Crescent Moon, was a heavy assault wolf with the ability to clone himself, and he fought for the title of their summoner. Jugen, First Quarter Moon, was a frontline fighter as well, although his invisibility made him more of a support role. Mangetsu, Full Moon, was a large wolf with multiple scars on his body. Because of the armor he was wearing, he was easily the eldest of the group and specialized in heavy assault. When Naruto saw the wolf's metal claws and spiked metal tail tip, he shuddered, knowing that even with his advanced regenerative abilities, the damage these weapons would deal would be fatal. As the group's jutsu specialist and the one with the greatest chakra reserve of the set, Hangastu, Half Moon, uses fire and wind-based attacks that complement each other because of their opposing forces. Last but not least is Mikadzuki, New Moon, the group's lone female healer. Although she specializes in healing, Mikadzuki can also wield a respectable amount of attacking power thanks to her unique take on Chakra Enjadu, or Chakra Scalpel, which enables her to deal direct damage to muscles, tendons, nerves, and organs. This, along with her skills in close-quarters combat, make Mikadzuki a deadly combination. The Wolf Assault Squad was the adorably named moniker given to these 5 wolves. The second day was dangerous for Naruto. After observing his specialized style of taijutsu, Fenrir noted several mistakes in its application and ordered the Wolf Assault Squad to put him through a rigorous training regimen. Naruto spent the entire day avoiding the group's attacks and only attacking when he discovered a gap in their defense. At the end of the day, Fenrir commended him for identifying the weakness in his style and for his ability to analyze the battle to make sure he finds a weakness in the opponent's defense. Despite the beatings he received from the wolves, Naruto was appreciative of the lesson. The third and final day of training was devoted to Naruto's practice of the transformation into wolf soul and human soul. Wolf soul is the spirit wolf tribe's werewolf form, while human soul is their human form. He practiced the transformation all day long until he could do it at any time, even during combat. Fenrir gave Naruto the moon wolf emblem, a C-shaped mark on his forehead that resembles a crescent moon with the tips at the bottom, before the day was out. He explained that the mark has two functions. 1. It identifies him as the Moon Wolf clan's summoner, and 2. It makes it possible for him to transform into his wolf soul without worrying about ruining his clothes. The blonde summoner was shocked to hear that his ancestors didn't worry about pants when transforming into wolf soul because his little wolf was hidden anyhow. Fenrir explained to him where it went in detail, much to Naruto's embarrassment. Before leaving, Naruto asked Fenrir why he had grown again, and he told him that it was because of the constant transformation from wolf soul to human soul and vice versa, which forced his body to mature at a rapid pace. Naruto had no issues with this, and his current appearance of 6 feet 4 with muscles and abilities reflecting a fully matured spirit wolf tribe member. After thanking them and shunning back to his apartment because he was naked, Naruto teleported out of his pad and went straight to the Hokage tower to check in with his surrogate grandfather. He didn't even bother to enter the tower through the front door. Instead, he teleported right outside the Hokage's office and knocked. The wolves then returned to the summon realm. The Hokage said, "Come in, Naruto-kun." "Hiya Hokage Jiji," Naruto said as he walked in, flashing his signature smile at his adoptive grandfather. "I've returned and am prepared for anything." Naruto laughed at Sarutobi's enthusiasm and he motioned for him to take a seat, saying, "Now, Naruto, I have already finalized the team placement and I have something special for you." "What is it?" excited Naruto exclaimed. "Well, this is your headband for passing the special exam that Mizuki set up for you." The Hokage smiled and tossed Naruto his very own Konoha headband, black as Naruto had requested when he was younger and attending the academy. Naruto pouted at this, making the Hokage smirk. With a smile, Naruto put it on his right bicep because the clan would not approve of him wearing it on his head since it would conceal his summoner mark. "Many thanks, Jiji. Do you require anything else at all?" As Naruto had not worked for 3 days and was eager to get back to work, he really wanted to go see Soji and tell him everything that had happened. "Well, how about you show off your metamorphosis right now? I assume you learned about it from Fenrir-sama?" The Hokage inquired, intrigued by the change. "Yes, Jiji. This is the human soul, or basically my human form, before I transform." After the explanation, he moved away from the Hokage's table and transformed slowly but fluidly so his surrogate grandfather could see the various changes to his body. "My transformed state is called Wolf Soul, which amplifies my human soul abilities." "So, Jiji, what are your thoughts?" asked a fully transformed Naruto, flashing his fangs and giving the Hokage a big wolf-like smirk. The Hokage made fun of Naruto's immaturity while pointing out a flaw. "What has become of your clothes? Everything was destroyed when you first changed, with the exception of your pants. You did notice that I have a moon-shaped mark on my forehead, correct? That wasn't just a mark of a wolf summoner," the Hokage said, nodding. "When I transform, it also serves as a storage seal where my clothes go. When I transform back into my human soul form, my clothes will return," Naruto said. "Fascinating. I had no idea that such things were possible. In any case, you should visit Tsunade so that she can examine you. Since your 3-day training, she has been dying to give you one." "Yes, Jiji. Tomorrow, I'm going to see Tsunade-ba-san. I will lose my job if I don't follow up with Soji-san." With a sheepish grin, Naruto said, "I need my job because my appetite has grown since I grew a bit after transforming back and forth so many times." Then he transformed back into his human soul form. "Okay, fine," Sarutobi waved the boy off. "I'll let you go now, until next time, Naruto-kun." With a final grin, he walked out of the room in a shunshin to meet with Soji. The Hokage sighed with relief when he realized there were no furs on the floor where Naruto had vanished, saving him from having to explain to the cleaners where the gold furs had come from. Naruto saw Soji reading Jiraiya's book, grinning and laughing like a crazy person. He sighed, realizing that he would never get used to Soji's perversity while in the shop. Naruto was already in line at Soji's shop, his mind already forming various excuses to make sure that it's credible to the retired Chunin. "Hello, Soji-san. I've returned and excelled in the test," yelled Naruto, startling the elderly man out of his seat. Soji moaned as he picked himself up off the ground and massaged his contusioned butt. "What a dumb brat. How many times have I told you that an elderly man should not be afraid in such a way?" The old weapon maker growled. "One of these days, you're going to give me a heart attack." "Yes, exactly. You don't look that old. You're still 52, for crying out loud," Naruto remarked, huffing in irritation. "Gaki, shut up. 52 is my age, please. My hips, oh, more than supposedly hurting hips," Soji complained, and Naruto just rolled his eyes at his sensei's naivete. "Anyway, I'm returning to my job." Naruto, who had only been gone for 3 days, asked, "Any pending orders while I was away?" as he put on his leather apron and yearned to return to crafting weapons. "Not a lot of gaki. Nothing is too much for me. We're running low on kunais and shurikens, so you might want to get out all the metal you can get your hands on and start banging," Soji said, taking a piece of paper out of his pocket with the instructions on it and giving it to Naruto. "Wow," whistled the blonde apprentice as soon as she saw the numbers on the paper. 1,500 kunais and 2,000 shurikens. Strict directive. Is that even how much metal we have? As he made his way back to the front desk, Soji nodded. "Yes. While you were away 2 days ago, I already placed an order for 2 tons of metals. You weren't around to haul it in, so I hired a genin team to put it inside your workroom. I'm too old to move those items to the rear chamber." Naruto nodded, knowing that hauling such metals would only make Soji's aging health worse, and that it made more sense to hire a genin team while he was away. Besides, with their current level of income, hiring a team didn't really break the bank. Naruto announced as he made his way to his workspace. "Anyway, I'm going to be out back to start working on this order." "Well thought out, Gaki. We'll chat after we close shop later," Soji uttered before returning to his sulking, giggling all the way with Naruto. When Naruto decided to call it a day, he had completed half of the orders. He found that working with metals always brought him calm and that his increased strength only enhanced the caliber and efficiency of his work. He finished the last of his finished goods in a box, nailed it shut, and placed it on the corner. He wiped the perspiration from his face and body, removed his leather apron, and put on his black muscle shirt. After leaving his workspace, he went to the front of the store and noticed Soji sitting at a table with a big box in front of him. "Aha, Naruto. I see that it's finally finished. How are the orders going for us?" A visibly excited Soji inquired. Naruto simply rolled his eyes, but his fake annoyance was visible through his smile. "Done halfway, sensei. After finishing the shurikens, I put them in a corner box so they would be ready to be sold," he told Soji as he was making his way to the table. "I'll finish the kunais tomorrow since I will be working in the mornings for a month since the team placement will be delayed." "So what's this thing?" pointing to the enormous box on the table. "Well, as I said I would have something for you once you became a genin and graduated from the academy. Here it is. These are the works that I have created. Since you began producing blades 2 years ago, I have been producing them. Every evening, I made sure you were unaware of them." "Open it and examine them," Soji said, obviously thrilled to see how Naruto would respond to his present. If Soji went to great lengths to make the gift, Naruto couldn't refuse it because he was touched by his sensei's kindness and generosity. When he opened the box, he was astounded by what he saw. He carefully placed the gauntlets on his wrist, securing them in place, admiring the craftsmanship that only Soji could make. Inside was a pair of blue gauntlets lined with silver. It contained 4 interlocking plates held together by metallic clips. He neglected the other item for the time being since he really wanted to check this out. "They really are nice, don't they? They represent my best work. Though only samurais wear armor, I do have skill making it, even though my specialty is weapons. But the metal I used to make these babies is what sets them apart. I used titanium mixed with premium chakra metals. It is highly resilient and effective as a shield against all types of weapons. I now want you to focus a small amount of your chakra on the seal that is behind your gauntlet's clasp." Following orders, Naruto was shocked to see claw-like blades protruding 4 inches from the base of his knuckles on each gauntlet as he stared in wonder at the weapons. "Interesting, huh? You can use them for your taijutsu attacks in addition to using them for defense." After following the instructions, Naruto was shocked to see the blades slide back into their housing as if they had never been removed. To increase your defense, channel chakra on the guard. Now to retract the blade, just channel your chakra again to the same spot. The guard will be protected from weapon attacks by a chakra shield created by the seals on its side. My boy, go check out your next gift. My finest work to date, exclaimed a giddy Soji. When the next gift arrived, Naruto smiled eagerly, figuring it would be a sword based on the way the cloth covered it. However, because the design is so subtle, he peeled back the covering and was astounded by what he saw. In my entire life, this is the best Zanbato-type blade I have ever made. You are already aware that I had a hand in making the swords used by the 7 swordsmen of the mist, so I used my knowledge of how to make those to create this baby. My finest creations. Naruto was astounded by the sheer intricacy of the blade in front of him. It measured an impressive 6 feet from handle to tip, was much thicker than a typical Zanbato, and had several seals carved along its length for purposes he could only speculate about. Additionally, the blade had a line down the middle that he could never figure out what it was used for. When he picked up the handle and raised it, he expected it to be heavier than a typical Zanbato given his strength, but surprisingly light for such a weapon. Consider Ichigo's blade, 2 of them joined by their blunt sides to form a double-edged triangle. This is my final blade, which I have named Kagenotsuki, Waning Moon. It is the best blade I have ever made in my life. I will never be able to make anything better than this. I will reveal the secret to this blade in due course. First of all, I believe you have already noted how light the blade is. Even though it is constructed of the same material as your gauntlet, it is lighter than it would have been if it hadn't been for a series of seals that have been passed down through my family. This allows it to defy gravity and weigh less than it would have otherwise. Additionally, I sealed it with blood so that only you could handle it and carry it with ease. The weight of the blade will approximately double to 2 tons if someone else uses it, as gravity will multiply 4 times on the blade. Naruto's eyes widened at that. Yes, Kagenotsuki weighs exactly 500 kilograms considering the type of metal I used and its thickness. After that, you did notice the middle line, right? Soji grinned as Naruto nodded, his gaze still enthralled with the blade's beauty. This is actually 2 blades put together to form a double-edged Zanbato, he said. I want you to channel chakra on the handle of the blade while holding it in both hands, right hand on top of left. After doing as instructed, Naruto heard a faint click from the blade and proceeded to pull it apart. The handle appeared to melt away from the area he wasn't touching, seemingly insignificant, and he was able to hold 2 single-edged Zanbato in front of him, leaving him speechless. Ji-san. Soji-ji. Do you really think you are giving these 2 to me? Just the craftsmanship on these is invaluable. Soji put his hand over Naruto's mouth to silence him, saying, I can't. Soji withdrew his hand from Naruto's face and sighed. I'm an old man, Naruto, and I have no one to teach me my craft. I was preparing you to be my apprentice when I hired you to work for me. You have exceeded my highest expectations with your skills, hard work, and determination. Since you are the son I never had, all I can do is make sure I give you the right tools to help defend your life and give you the confidence to take on any foe. Naruto, kindly accept these gifts. A tear trickled down Naruto's cheek, and he put the sword back on the box before giving Soji a deep hug while tears streamed down both of their faces. They held each other for a long time without saying anything because their hearts spoke louder than words, but even though they didn't admit it to each other, they had always seen each other as father and son, boss and employee, and most importantly, master and apprentice. One more feature Gaki that I forgot to tell you. I want you to place the sword back together the same way you separated it and place it on your back, Soji said, giving Naruto a crooked smile as he patted him on the back and released him. Naruto simply gave Soji a puzzled expression but followed the instructions. The 2 swords merged once more with a faint click, their handles blending together to form a single grip. He hefted the sword slightly and laid it on his back, feeling a small tug in his chakra that seemed to connect with the blade. When he took his hand off, he was surprised that the blade stayed in place. Soji grinned broadly. The no-sheath seal I applied to the blade itself is the final feature. When you place it over your spine, it will automatically attach itself to your chakra, locking it there until you remove it. Only you are capable of removing it. Grinning back, Naruto tried drawing and sheathing the blade a few times until he finally got the hang of it. After a few minutes, both of them were able to cool down, with Naruto proudly displaying his weapons to the world and holding his hands and back in front of him. Soji brought them tea and they talked about everything that had happened. To the surprise and amazement of Soji, Naruto revealed to him the truth about his bloodline and even revealed to him his wolf soul. Soji also gave Naruto a scroll that was originally from Mist and showed a style for Zanbato users. The katas were basic enough, since Zanbatos were too heavy to even swing around in intricate maneuvers, but Soji informed him that Naruto would be able to wield his blade like a katana. After their conversation, which ended well into the evening, Naruto returned to his apartment, his new weapons on display for all to see, resolved to study and hone his skills from the scroll Soji had given him and to come up with a plan for asking Naoko to spar with him. Using the time before the team assignments, Naruto made good use of his resources. He attempted several times to ask the Hokage questions or wheedle information about who would be on his team, but he was always met with oblique refusals or subtle diversion. Finally, after attempting to use his wolf soul for the 5th time without success, he gave the old man a look of hurt puppy that the old man did his best to ignore. Using Kage Bunshin, Naruto was able to multitask with ease. While his real body was busy working hard at Soji's shop, he would use his clone to practice the katas from the Zanbato scroll. Soji didn't tell him, but his shop was already exporting weapons outside the village because word had gotten out that their products were the best in the market. When he asked Naoko for assistance, his training with Kagenotsuki accelerated. The blonde Zanbu operator was taken aback by the blade's intricacy and was delighted to help him develop his abilities. Yugo also taught Naruto some katas used by katana wielders, because of the seals that made the blade nearly weightless. By the end of the month, Yugo assessed Naruto's sword skills to be low chunin when using a single sword mode and low junin when using a double sword technique. In fact, Yugo had to enlist her boyfriend, Gekko Hayate, for a 2-on-1 sword duel because of how complicated Naruto's double sword techniques were. As a result, all three of them improved their sword skills, even though Naruto consistently lost to one or the other. After breaking their swords for the 5th time, Naruto decided to make them swords using chakra metals, giving them a smug smile when they both sported shocked looks after presenting them with their new weapons. Naruto didn't know as of yet that chakra metals were expensive and that a single katana was worth a year's worth of Anbu wage. Naruto even went to the extent of repairing both of their swords twice because he broke them due to the strength of his blade and his swings. Of course, this was done without charging for the repair work. At the end of the month, Naruto made 8,000 shurikens, 10,000 kunais, and 5,000 senbons to tide the shop over till his next free time. Additionally, Naruto discussed with Soji that he would be going on missions, so they made an arrangement regarding stockpiling weapons to make sure that they never run out while Naruto was away. On the day of the team assignments, Naruto showed up to the academy decked out in his weapons, which drew some strange looks from onlookers as he made his way to the compound. Since he had arrived 30 minutes early, he used the opportunity to nap. Shikamaru startled him awake by saying, "Oi Naruto, I thought you didn't pass the exams." "I passed Shika," Naruto said, gesturing to the Konoha headband on his bicep while rolling his eyes. "Later, Iruka will clarify it so that everyone is aware." Iruka entered the classroom as if he was being called, and to everyone's surprise, the Hokage followed him. Since this was the first time the Sandaime had been present for team assignments, everyone fell silent, which made Iruka smile, but he groaned inwardly when he realized he could silence them. He coughed and turned to face the graduates. "To everyone who passed the exams, congratulations. Hokage-sama is here for the team placement, as you may have noticed. The Hokage is informing you about teams and the rationale behind them. This is one of the new rules that the village has instituted. A shinobi's most powerful tool is knowledge, and Iruka clarified that understanding the value of your team will benefit you in the field later on." The Hokage grinned at the graduates and coughed to get everyone's attention. "Happy morning. You are all now Konoha's genins, and it is my expectation that you will all work hard and train hard to bring prosperity and pride to the village." He received a few nods from the group in front of him. "Now, I think you might notice that Uzumaki Naruto is here in this room wearing a Konoha headband when you all know that he didn't pass the exam. As you can see, Mizuki isn't present with you at this moment to clarify. He is a betrayer of the village, and Naruto assisted in his imprisonment," the Hokage said, shocking the entire class. Curious as ever, Shikamaru raised his hands to ask his question, and the Hokage nodded, causing him to get up and speak to the village chief. "Excuse me, Hokage-sama, but could you please elaborate on the scope of his mission?" It was a daring statement, challenging the Hokage, but his inquisitiveness triumphed over reason. Nara was curious and the Hokage smiled at her. Many students gasped when they heard this. "We have discovered that Mizuki was planning to use one of the failing students in this class to steal the Forbidden Scroll. So we purposely misled everyone by making Naruto act that he can't perform a clone jutsu to fail the exam. Then, in order for Naruto to pass, Mizuki told him about a special exam that didn't exist. Thus, Naruto approached Mizuki in the forest with a fictitious scroll. With Naruto's assistance, We were able to apprehend Mizuki in the dark. He motioned to Naruto, who nodded and then created a solid clone that materialized next to him in a puff of smoke. To make it seem fair to the group, I will ask Naruto-kun to demonstrate that he can indeed create a clone that qualifies him to pass the exam in the first place. Naruto dispelled the clone after persuading everyone, returned to his seat, and listened to the Hokage assigning teams for the class. No one noticed that the clone was solid, so he didn't bother explaining it to them. Up until he reached Team 7, the elderly Hokage followed the protocol for allocating and describing the teams. Assault Squad and Frontline are the new definitions of Team 7. To complement the missions assigned to this squad, the genins who will be assigned to it specialize in vicious ninjutsu, taijutsu, and kenjutsu techniques. Uchiha Sasuke, who is skilled in both ninjutsu and taijutsu, Haruno Sakura, who will serve as the group's medic and genjutsu expert, and Sai, a former academy graduate who lost his team the previous year, make up Team 7. Hitaki Kakashi will be your Junin sensei. Tracker and Detection is the assigned role for Team 8. Members of this team need to possess extraordinary tracking and detection skills and abilities. Therefore, Aburame Shino, Inuzuka Kiba, and Hyuga Hinata's specialized skills are ideal for this position. Kurenai Yuhi would be your Junin sensei. Team 9 is still in the system because their sensei forbade them from taking part in the Chunin exam the previous year. This squad functions as a support squad and is primarily an attack squad, akin to Team 7. Since Maeda Guy is in charge of this team, it's likely that you will work on missions with them in the future. With the help of their own heirs, Yamanaka Ino, Nara Shikamaru, and Akamichi Choji, the Ino Shika Cho group is reformed, and Team 10 is formed as an infiltration, information gathering, and capture team. My son Sarutobi Asuma will be your trainer for all three of you. Finally, but just as importantly, a purely assassination squad made up of a genin and a junin has been formed. At this point, numbers don't matter because these missions are completed quickly and discreetly. Thus, Naruto will be a member of Team 11, which will be known as an assassination squad and will be coached by Mitarashi Anko. In addition, Naruto will receive the title of Tokubetsu Genin because of his bloodline. In terms of the chain of command, this position is just below Chunin and above Genin. Any inquiries? The Hokage concluded. The team assignment ended with teams being instructed to return after lunch to meet their respective senseis. A few complaints were made, particularly regarding the formation of Team 11, but the Hokage was more than capable of putting an end to them with well-placed reasons and killer intent. Seated beneath his favorite tree behind the academy compound, Naruto was savoring his instant ramen. Having consumed 5 of them to last him until later, he was about to nod off when some people stopped by to join him. "Hey Naruto, as usual, why didn't you come to lunch with us?" questioned Shoji, still chowing down on his chips despite having a full lunch buffet during his break. Hiya Shoji, Naruto waved at them to take a seat. He noticed the people behind Shoji and became perplexed as to why the entire clan of heirs were present. "So guys, what brings you here?" "I took a quick lunch of instant ramen because I was a bit sleepy and planned to sleep the whole break off here in my favorite spot." Speaking to the whole group, which included a lagging Sasuke, Choji, Shikamaru, Ino, Hinata, Kiba, and Akamaru. With a grunt, Shikamaru settled down next to Naruto. "I was just curious about how you were doing. You returned a month after we last saw you, and you made a lot of changes. Man, how in the world did you get so big?" Shika asked, glancing over at him. "Well, it's because of the final activation of my bloodline," Naruto said, feeling embarrassed by all the attention he was receiving from the group. He scratched the back of his head. "My physique needs to adapt to keep up with my abilities." With a nervous look on her face, Ino eyed Naruto. "Naruto, really? Prior to being handsome. You are unquestionably great a material now. Yum." Not one of them noticed the dagger-filled look Hinata was aiming towards the Yamanaka heir, but Ino winked saucily, causing Naruto to blush. "So, could you please tell us anything about your male ancestry? We're curious here," Kiba exclaimed, his head nodding in Akamaru's current slumber. After considering Kiba's question, Naruto scowled and considered the pros and cons while glancing at the clan heirs surrounding him. The Hokage had specifically advised him to keep his bloodline a secret in front of the villagers to avoid inciting their fear of him since he already possesses the Kyuubi. Since Shikamaru and Choji have been his close friends since childhood, they can easily keep his secret. Since Fenrir-sama informed him that he is the Dog Clan's alpha and that as his summoner, they will naturally obey his commands within reason, Kiba will undoubtedly keep this a secret. Because of his bloodline, Shino, being the stoic person that he was, could understand his transformation with ease. Since Hinata seems to look up to him, she can keep his secret. Hinata was the only shy Hyuga he knew. However, Ino was well known for being the group gossip, so it's possible that she would keep it a secret if the situation got serious enough. But Sasuke was a different story. The stoic Uchiha will undoubtedly grow envious of his skills and find a means to torment him over them. He told them only about his ability in his human soul, choosing to withhold some of his bloodline abilities from them. Well, my ancestry is based on my body. I was 8 years old when it first began to appear. I believe everyone remembers that I went through a growth spurt at that time. It already matured this year, giving me increased strength, agility, and speed, the speaker said as everyone nodded. Tsunade Ba-san informed me that my ancestry might have come from a tribe possessing wolf-like prowess or something similar. Not wanting Sasuke to know the full extent of his powers until the right moment to reveal them, Naruto said, "It's quite possible that some of my ancestors were blessed by the wolf, who knows?" Shikamaru was staring at him speculatively, but everyone else seemed to be buying into his story. Naruto sensed that the astute Nara already knew that he was hiding something, so he decided to overlook it. "Are you serious? That's awesome, dude. Is it comparable to my clan?" Akamaru barked, seconded by an ecstatic Kiba. "Yes," Naruto nodded. "My senses of smell, sight, and hearing all improved as part of the package, but not by much." "How about Naruto-kun, the sword?" a stuttering Hinata questioned. "My boss, Soji, made this for me as a gift for graduating the academy," Naruto said, flashing her a fond smile before taking the sword from behind him and holding it in front of him to let them see his cherished weapon. "He made this one for me so I could learn how to use a sword to better protect myself because, as you already know, he is a weapon maker. Isn't it lovely?" Everyone saw the sword, and it is undeniable that it is a piece of art. "That's one big sword, Naruto," exclaimed Ino, taking in the sword's beauty and enormity. "How on earth are you able to hold it that comfortably?" "Kegenotsuki is a special sword, among the best available. Yes, it is heavy, but my sensei sealed it so that it would only be light for me." Naruto clarified, "If others hold this sword, they will feel the full weight." Scoffing, Sasuke said, "Yeah right, Dobi. Anyone can wield a sword if you can." With a playful twinkle in his eyes, Naruto said, "Sasuke, would you really like to give it a try then? Why don't you take it out then?" he asked, getting to his feet and stabbing the sword into the ground. With a grin on his face, Sasuke acknowledged Naruto's challenge and advanced toward the sword, gripping its handle and attempting to pull it free, but the sword resisted. He tried again, this time using all of his strength, but it refused to budge an inch. After a few more minutes of futility and glaring at Naruto, he gave up and left, walking back to the academy with Ino trailing behind him, encouraging the Uchiha. With a simple chuckle, Naruto reached for the sword, lifted it with ease, and leaned it against the tree before taking a seat next to it. Shikamaru gave Naruto a grumpy look before saying, "Okay, Naruto, spill the rest of the info out." Just glancing at the indolent Nara, Naruto arched an eyebrow in doubt. "I understand that you omitted certain details, Naruto, and that's why you chose not to disclose all of your ancestry. As Sasuke would nag you about it if he ever found out. We all know that Ino is a gossip who will tell anyone about anything without hesitation. Thus, release." Shikamaru's explanation widened Naruto's eyes. He hit the mark exactly. "You're so intelligent, Shika. For once, why won't your brain just shut down?" With a tone of exasperation, Naruto spoke. The heir to the Nara clan merely gave him a smug glance. "HMPH. I'm intelligent. So feel free to sue me." Naruto simply shot him a derisive glare, to which the heir to the Nara family grinned happily. With curiosity, Kiba was observing the glaring pair. "What do you mean, Shika? Didn't Naruto tell us everything?" "It makes sense for Naruto to keep it a secret, especially with people who can't be trusted with the information," Shino said in a monotone voice. Shino was met with astonished looks from all around him. This was the first time he had answered a question with more than a grunt or a single or double word. Shino became irritated with the looks. "I don't have to know how to talk if I don't talk much," he continued. "I just don't see any logical reason to use long sentences when a few words would suffice." Naruto merely gave a headshake. "All right. I'll tell you, but first I want everyone to know that this is an S-class secret that the Hokage has declared to be punishable by death. Are you still curious?" Everyone nodded. Well, everyone but Shino, who simply arched an eyebrow as though to say, "You know we aren't stupid after all." Naruto then used Shunshin to leave the academy and head towards the clearing, leaving the other members of the group shocked at the unexpected use of a Chunin-level technique. Okay, there is a clearing a few kilometers behind the academy. I want you to meet me there in 10 minutes. With a grunt, Shikamaru got up and turned to face the other stunned members of the group. Well, will you guys be attending or not? They all got up and moved quickly toward the clearing behind the academy to discover Uzumaki Naruto's secrets since they no longer needed any encouragement. Reaching the clearing, Naruto shook his head, finding it hard to believe that he had promised to reveal the rest of his bloodline. Sure, he had to keep it a secret, but his pack mentality already saw the other clan heirs as fellow members of the pack. Well, with a few exceptions. After giving it some more thought, he concluded that it would be wise to inform them of his bloodline, though it would be wise to have them swear not to tell anyone else. Since they would be joining the shinobi forces of the village, it makes sense that they would be aware of his abilities so that they can cooperate more effectively on missions. The more he considered it, the more sense it made. He finally decided to tell them everything about his bloodline, though this time he will withhold some of his more notable abilities, such as his summons. The others soon followed, panting from their rapid pace, but Kiba seemed to be the only one who was a little out of breath from running, since it is only fitting that their clan should be a little more fit than the others. While waiting for the others to catch their breath, Naruto waved at them to approach. Are you really interested in learning the rest of my family tree? You still have time to change your mind, Naruto prodded, trying their resolve. With a look that said volumes, Shikamaru told him to get on with it. Naruto, if we hadn't wanted to know about it, we wouldn't have come here so quickly. With a nod, everyone else confirmed that they were also considering the same thing. Okay guys, Naruto nodded. I am a member of the Spirit Wolf tribe, a clan. The last is me. As I mentioned before, the wolf, more especially, the wolf spirit, is the source of our abilities. The human soul portion of my lineage is what you are currently seeing, my human form. At the explanation, Shino arched an eyebrow. It appears that you have another form as well. It seems reasonable to me, based on your earlier explanation, that you have the ability to transform into a wolf as well. I got it in a single Shino. I just need you guys to swear to me that nobody outside of this group should know about this before I switch to my other form. Even the Hokage banned me from telling you guys, but since we'll be collaborating in the future, I think it makes sense for you to be aware of my abilities. Everyone in the group was nodding along, with the exception of Kiba, who exclaimed, hell, yeah. Naruto smiled at Akamaru's yips, and said, bring it on. To everyone's surprise, Naruto changed into his wolf soul form right away, changing his speed to ensure that the Hokage understood the transformation. After completing the transformation, he stood up to his full height and gave each member of the group a wolfish grin that revealed all of his razor-sharp teeth. Each member's reaction varied. Shikamaru's mouth dropped open and closed, but no words came out. When Kiba and Akamaru's instincts began warning them that they were in front of an alpha, they both shuddered. Shino's eyebrows vanished, appearing wide-eyed and dangerously shaded low on his nose. Naruto simply dropped dead at the sight of a very muscular golden werewolf in front of him, while Hinata just meeped and passed out. Disregarding his chips at his feet, Choji gaped at the enormous werewolf before him. Naruto made the decision to arouse them from their shock. So, what are your thoughts? Not receiving a response from the group, he decided to play a practical joke on them by howling loudly. He asked in his deep guttural voice that simply screamed, dangerous. Everybody in the open space passed out. Tsunade simply grunted as she heard the howl coming from somewhere in the academy's surrounding forest, then took a long swig from her sake bottle. Damn Gaki, taking the lead once more. Laughing uncontrollably at the way the clan heirs reacted to Naruto's transformation, Sarutobi Hiruzen, the Sandaime Hokage, was spying on the blonde with his crystal ball to see how his friends would handle the change. He specifically ordered Naruto not to tell the villagers about the information, but it appears that he found a way around the order by telling his fellow genins instead, realizing that Naruto wanted them to know about his abilities because he would be collaborating with them in the future and that his pack mentality would not allow him to keep any secrets from them. He straightened his robes, let out another laugh, and got himself together before returning to his crystal ball inspection. While Inuzuka Sume was inspecting the kennels, a loud howl erupted above the cacophony of barking dogs in the compound, at which point all the dogs instantly subsided into whining. The clan head merely shook her head and turned to face the whimpering dogs in front of her, thinking smugly, damn that Gaki, he definitely knows how to shut you all up. Kuromaru merely rolled his eyes at the antics of his companion. When Jiraiya heard Naruto's loud howl, the women on the other side of the fence went crazy and fled the hot springs. leaving Jiraiya very angry that he had lost his research material. Jiraiya was once again spying in the hot springs. "I hate that brat so much. He ruined my research," yelled a furious Jiraiya, not realizing that a few of the girls had heard him and were behind him, brandishing weapons to intimidate him into being a pervert. Iruka heard Naruto's howl as he looked up from grading papers, but he just shook his head and turned back to his work, muttering something like, "Annoying blonde who doesn't know how to keep his muzzle shut." Soji was laughing while reading a very sensual passage from his Icha Icha book, completely unaware of Naruto's loud howl. "Oh Kimiko, you naughty girl you. Baby, show your dad how much you care. Hee hee hee." His nose was bleeding a little as he laughed again. When Naruto returned to the clearing, he sat on the grassy floor in his wolf soul form, waiting for his fellow genin to reawaken. It took him about 5 minutes for the clan heir's brain to reboot and awaken from their comatose state. They all turned to face Naruto, who was waving a clawed paw at them and grinning broadly like a wolf. "Greetings from the living world once again." When Shikamaru looked around at his classmates, he noticed that most of them were staring blankly at the wolfman in front of them, not knowing what to say. He just shook his head and muttered, "Troublesome blonde." "All right, Naruto, let me clarify this. Do you come from a clan that can change into wolves?" Naruto nodded. "And you possess all of their powers?" Naruto nodded again and giving him a wolfish grin, showing off his fangs. Shikamaru shook his head. "Troublesome wolf." That caused a pause in the conversation, and people started asking questions of Naruto, who was doing his best to respond. The blonde werewolf noticed that Hinata was silent and staring at Naruto with wide eyes, but everyone else was occupied with their conversations. "Hey, Hinata-chan. Are you okay? Is Hinata really trying to keep herself in check?" asked a worried Naruto, cocking his head to the side and pressing one ear flat against his head. With her eyes fixed on Naruto's form, Hinata remained silent as she got up, brushed the loose leaves from her clothes, and moved to approach the wolfman in front of her. She stopped a few feet ahead of Naruto and stared at him, looking down behind him and somewhere on top of his head, as if she was struggling with something, and then she shivered and let out a loud shout that startled everyone in the clearing. "K-A-W-A-I!" she yelled as she lunged at Naruto, mimicking Neko's move, and to the blonde's shock and humiliation, she began scratching behind his ears. Naruto yielded to the attentions, eyes half open, long pink tongue lolling out of the side of his mouth, tail wagging, feet twitching in bliss since he loved the sensation of being scratched behind his ears. Everyone laughed at the sight of a cowed golden werewolf in front of them, and Akamaru whimpered with jealousy. Just in time for each sensei to meet, Naruto and his friends managed to return to the academy. To get Hinata to separate from a contentedly unconscious Naruto so they wouldn't be late, it took 3 people. The timid Hyuga blushed from head to toe as the blonde werewolf whimpered and objected to taking Hinata's magical fingers from him. With remorse, he transformed back into his human soul form and walked grumpily through the forest towards the village proper. The guys in the group laughed as he muttered about unfairness and cruelty to animals. Hinata was occupied resisting the impulse to pass out from being so close to Naruto, both as a man and a wolf. The group returned to the academy after reiterating their vow to keep Naruto's bloodline and transformation a secret. This time, Naruto chose to hang out with the troop while returning to the compound rather than using Shunshin. Additionally, he enjoyed conversing with Kiba and Akamaru about wolfy stuff, although the latter only occasionally yipped during the talk. With just a minute to spare, they returned to the academy. However, Shikamaru stopped them when they arrived at the compound, asking them to enter at different times so as to avoid being suspected. Thus, Shikamaru and Choji entered first, then Kiba and Akamaru, Hinata, Shino, and finally Naruto, who wanted to add more realism to the act by consuming an instant ramen right before the act to make it appear as though he was running a little behind schedule due to lunch. While the hard-working ones were dreaming about the new training regimen they would be trying out under more experienced shinobis, the academy graduates were busy talking among themselves, mostly discussing what missions they will be getting. Iruka just shrugged off the commotion and went back to grading papers from his other classes. When the door was unexpectedly blown off its hinges, everyone was taken aback. Some of the men in the room straightened their pants as a purple-haired woman strode into the room. She was about 5'7" and had a cream-colored trench coat on that exposed a lot of skin, with a chainmail mesh underneath. Her assets were only adequately covered because of the coat. A brown skirt secured with a blue belt completed the ensemble. Although she had a menacing smile on her face, the sight of her almost scared everyone in the room. Iruka regarded the intruder closely and then let out a long sigh. Iruka became irate and said, "You're early, Anko-san, and you didn't have to destroy the door. It wasn't locked, you know." The room's male populace began fidgeting again as the newly christened Anko pulled out a kunai and licked it sensually, giving Iruka a seductive smile. Anko said in a seductive voice, "Iruka-kun, you still haven't given me an answer from last week." Iruka looked around the room, trying to find a way out, beads of sweat forming on his forehead. He glanced towards the window, but before he could escape, Anko grabbed hold of Iruka's arms and began to caress her assets against it. "Oh, come on, Iruka-kun. Are you sure you don't want to go on a date with me?" Iruka tried to move away from her as she shivered at her tone. Iruka tried to deflect Anko's attention from him to a shell-shocked Naruto, saying, "Anko-san. Not in front of the kids. Besides, your apprentice is here waiting for you." His mind definitely made the choice fast. It was either him or his favorite blonde. Anko sulked and released her victim, but not before licking his cheek so hard that it nearly caused a massive nosebleed, which rendered half the men in the room unconscious. Anko turned to look around and smiled at her work. She yelled, "Okay, maggots. Who is Uzumaki Naruto?" in a voice that gave everyone a chill. Everyone in the room pointed at a perspiring Naruto who, like Iruka, was scanning the area for a way out without wanting to irritate her. Two hands wrapped around his neck, impeding his ability to move or escape, so much so that he was unable to even stand up from his desk. With a forceful shake of his head, Naruto said, Now, Naruto-kun. You're not thinking of escaping from me, are you? Good, my pet. It's time to go and introduce you to my training ground so we can turn you into a fine shinobi." Both vanished in a cloud of smoke, and everyone was left to stare at the vacant seat while they prayed to whatever kami was in attendance to protect Naruto from the vicious Junin. Sasuke even appeared empathetic. Location: Forest of Death, also known as Training Ground 44. As soon as Naruto emerged in the forest, he wriggled out of Anko's hold and leapt a short distance to escape his cruel teacher. Anko noticed the activity and smiled. Giving the anxious Naruto a sly sneer, the purple-haired Junin purred, "Lively one, aren't you, Naruto-kun?" She said, "Let's get started, shall we?" as she sat down on the verdant forest floor and motioned for Naruto to follow. Anko led the meeting once they were both at ease. "Okay, Gaki. Let's introduce ourselves to get to know each other better. Hokage-sama already briefed me regarding your, unusual bloodline, but I want to see it for myself later when I test you. Now, let me start with the introduction. My name is Mitarashi Anko, Tokubetsu Junin of Konohagakure no Sato. My likes are dango, my snakes, torturing missing nins, traitors, and prisoners. And Iruka-kun. My dislikes includes a certain pedophile snake traitor, rapists, and people who judge a book by its cover. My hobbies includes my job as a torture and interrogation specialist, hanging out with Kurenai-chan and Hana-chan, roughhousing with my snakes, and having an all-night party with sake and dango. My dreams of the future," she let out a wicked cackle in fear, "to castrate said pedophile snake traitor before killing him. Now it's your turn, Gaki." Nodding, Naruto approved of what his sensei was saying. "My name is Uzumaki Naruto, Tokubetsu Genin. My likes include ramen, wolves, my pack which includes my precious people, my sword Kagenitsuki, making weapons and playing around with metals, and my precious people in the village. My dislikes are people who misjudge others without getting to know them, perverts who don't know the meaning of control, rapists, traitors, and those who hurt my pack and my precious people. My hobbies are weapon making and training. My dreams for the future is to be strong enough to protect and defend my pack and to become the strongest Hokage." Anko will undoubtedly enjoy herself with her new apprentice after hearing what she had to say. She told her soon-to-be charge, "Now Gaki, you have passed the academy exam, but you need to pass my test before you can even call yourself a genin." The blonde werewolf cast a puzzled glance at his sensei. "What do you mean? Aren't those who graduated automatically genins?" Anko gave a headshake. "Nope, far from it. The academy exam is to weed out the ones without the potential to become a shinobi of the village. You need to prove yourself to your respective senseis if you have the guts to really become one." Naruto gave a nod. Sorting the good from the bad before ensuring they become shinobis is undoubtedly a good idea. "So what do you want me to test me on, Anko-sensei?" That sounded good to Anko. "Yes, Anko-teacher. It sounds good when said aloud. It's time to start touring with this show." She got up and jumped back, assuming a fighting stance. "I already know your abilities from Hokage-sama, so we are going to have a full-out spar so I can judge your skills properly." I don't want you to hold out on me, Gaki. She teasingly asked the blonde in front of her. Are you ready, Gaki? He assumed his modified wolf rage stance and said, bring it on, Anko-sensei. He then waited for Anko to launch an attack. He didn't have to wait long because Anko quickly charged forward, delivering a forceful blow to the face that easily knocked the blonde away. Naruto let out a grunt in response to the pain on his cheeks, spun around in midair, and skidded back a short distance before coming to a stop. Anko smiled. Definitely, the child can take a hit. After shaking himself to get the shock out of his system, Naruto assumed a certain stance. He lunged forward, launching a punch that Anko easily sidestepped by bending backwards in a display of human flexibility. He then released a kick that would have struck Naruto in the chin if he hadn't retreated in time. Anko took advantage of the circumstance, flipping and punching Naruto in the stomach with chakra enhancements, causing the blonde werewolf to grunt as if he had just lost his wind. Anko kicked him in the side of the head before he could move, sending him flying into a tree and leaving his mark before he collapsed onto the forest floor in a daze. Anko gave the boy a leer and taunted, "What's wrong, Gaki? Is that all you got? Here, I thought you were good for a fight since Hokage-sama was praising your skills." After being severely shaken by the punch and kick, Naruto got up shakily. If the pain he experienced was any indication, it was definitely potent. After taking offense at the taunt, Naruto became serious and resolved to teach the purple-haired woman some skills in defeating a werewolf. He unhinged the sword from his back, rammed it with its point facing downward, and stretched a little to release some tension in his muscles. To the surprise of the purple-haired Junin, he smiled at Anko and vanished from sight. When her instincts took over, she was able to avoid a punch that was aimed at her former location on the ground. The force of Naruto's blow created a crater on the ground that was 2 feet deep. Anko thought to herself, holy shit. This Gaki means business. I think it was a bad idea to taunt him. She leapt back a little to give herself more offensive space. She took 3 kunais out of her pouch, tossed them to Naruto, and sealed some things, sealing a ram seal at the end. Kunai Kage Bunshin no Jutsu. The 3 kunai turned 30 and headed directly for Naruto, who gaped at the amount of projectiles coming at him and quickly used his speed to dodge them. He was fortunate enough to escape serious injury even though a few of them gave him minor cuts to his thighs and shoulder. He wasn't too concerned about the wounds because they were already healing. He rushed towards Anko, not caring about his wounds because they were already healing. He pumped chakra into his legs to accelerate his movement, and then he punched Anko in the stomach. Just as he was ready to gloat, the person he punched turned to dirt. A kick to the ribs snapped 2 of them apart with such force that it snapped him out of his shock. Once more, a blow to the head knocked him out. Anko, seeing as he beat the blonde, remarked, "Nice try, Gaki, but you need to do better than simple speed and strength to beat me." But when he got back up and gave her a glare and shook the pain away, she was taken aback. She smiled. Not giving him a chance to recover, she flipped through hand seals and ended in a tiger seal. This kid is interesting to say the least. He definitely has power and speed to spare, but his experience is seriously lacking. Might as well take it up a notch to see if he has more to show me. Kaden. Fireball Jutsu. Anko inhaled sharply and spit out a massive ball of fire that was aimed directly at the blonde. Naruto was too late to see the approaching fireball. He didn't have time to dodge, so he focused a lot of chakra on his gauntlet and backhanded the fireball, hoping his chakra shield would work as he had planned. Fortunately, it did. With the force of his backhand, he deflected the fireball and sent it hurtling toward a tree to his right, destroying the trunk with fire. Anko was astounded by what Naruto had done. A jutsu could not be deflected with the hands alone. Glancing at the perspiring blonde, he saw that her gauntlet had a blue covering. A chakra shield. Interesting. He must have channeled a large amount of chakra on his gauntlet to avoid getting hurt by the flames. Nice one, Gaki. You definitely impressed me. Observing Anko's disbelieving expression after he had destroyed the fireball, he charged the Junin, using his agility and reflexes to attack, holding back until a weakness would manifest, just as Fenrir had taught him. Both of them traded punches and kicks, with Naruto failing to land a blow because of Junin's ability to turn around and deflect his blows with her body, and Junin only managing a few glance strikes due to the blonde's superhuman reflexes. Naruto was lucky because he saw Anko overextend an elbow strike, which allowed him to move to the right and unleash his own elbow strike toward the Junin's exposed midsection. Anko was thrown back with the force of the strike, and it connected, causing her to exhale completely. Without pausing to give Anko a chance to gather her thoughts, Naruto raced forward, snatching her arms and flinging her as hard as he could towards a tree. Anko struck the tree, but the force of the throw caused him to turn into mud, which was blown away. Upon realizing it was a mud clone, Naruto cursed. His instincts took over, and he leapt to the side just in time to avoid a hail of shurikens shooting down from above. He unleashed his own string of shuriken at the tumbling Anko, but the Junin was able to deflect the projectiles with her kunai, saving herself. As the Junin was falling and there was nothing Naruto could do to stop her, he saw his opportunity to harm her. He punched out, expecting to hit her face, but the woman saw the attack coming and used her fist and her palms to push her away. She had been covering her face with a thick layer of chakra. While flying back, she made a few seals, and when she landed, she slammed it against the ground. Kuchio's no jutsu. Anko was standing atop the head of a massive snake when the smoke cleared. The woman smiled. Nice going there, Gaki. I thought you didn't know how to fight. Now I want you to meet my best friend. With a sly smile, Naruto broke through his own set of seals and forcefully hit the ground with his right hand. Kuchio's no jutsu. Manjetsu. Manjetsu's armored form materialized next to Naruto. The armored summon questioned, Naruto, what reason have you called me out here? Naruto gestured to the big snake and Anko, who was obviously taken aback. I was having a sparring test with my sensei over there until she brought out reinforcements. It's only fair to bring out my own, right? Manjetsu laughed. You were correct, young pup. Let's see what the tribe of Manda can do. Naruto gave a nod, and the two launched themselves at the snake, trying to hurt it with their hit-and-run moves. The snake's tough scales and quick speed made it difficult. While Anko's snakes lunged at the attacking pair, she created distractions. The wolves found it difficult to hit the snake due to the projectiles and fireballs, but Manjetsu saw an opportunity and pounced, ramming the snake's head with his own, forcing it to throw Anko and itself away from the two. Silently speaking to Manjetsu, Naruto quickly withdrew from the battle, using Manjetsu as a distraction to keep the snake and its summoner busy. When Naruto noticed his sword was stuck to the ground, he took it out and resumed the fight. When he returned to the clearing, he witnessed Manjetsu successfully sever the snake with a swipe of its weaponized tail, sending it back into the summoning realm. Manjetsu nodded as he saw Naruto and then turned to go back. Using this opportunity, the blonde werewolf charged towards Anko, who noticed the weapon and pulled out a kunai with chakra reinforcement. However, the Junin was taken aback when Naruto tore apart his arms, causing the blades to split into their dual sword form. This gave the Junin no time to prepare a counterattack. When Anko summoned Naruto, she was taken aback. They both attacked with a swiftness and accuracy akin to a pack of wolves in the wild. She attempted to defend her snake by obstructing the wolf pair's attack route with fireballs and kunais. When her snake lunged at an unprotected Naruto, she was ready to shout in triumph, but the armored wolf rammed the side of her snake's head, throwing both of them away. With a thump, she hit the ground and witnessed her summoned snake return to its own plane after suffering serious injuries from the wolf's attack. When the wolf also puffed out, she exhaled a sigh of relief. Her optimism was dashed, though, as she witnessed Naruto sprinting in her direction, his massive sword poised to impale her. In an instant, she drew her kunai and strengthened it with all the chakra she could muster to defend herself. She was taken aback once more, though, when Naruto attacked her with such strength and speed that he split the blade in two and made her go on the defensive. As Anko watched Naruto's attack patterns until she could find a weakness, she thought, this kid is a monster. Who would have thought that his blade could split like that? Damn it. First his freaking strength, speed, and reflexes. Then he brings out a freaking summon when I did. Now he is pushing me back with a sword, well swords since it split into two. Nice trick. I need to end this quick before this kid kills me. When Naruto overextended a thrust, she saw one. She avoided the blow and used her chakra-enhanced leg to kick Naruto in the ribs, pushing him away from her. She didn't waste any time, calling out her go-to move with both hands. Shadow Snake Hands. Despite Naruto's strength, a dozen snakes shot out of her sleeves and bound him with enough force to render him unconscious. She used her technique to keep the boy on the ground even though she could see that her opponent was helpless and bound. Anko gave Naruto a twisted grin and said, "You're really something, Gaki. You made me sweat a bit. Now why don't you be a good boy and stay put?" Naruto just smiled at her, taking her by surprise before he began to grow. Upon noticing Anko's sly smile, Naruto made the immediate decision that he would require his trump card in order to escape his current situation. He transformed into a wolf and turned on his bloodline. The swift transformation and increased power completely destroyed the snakes securing him. He rose to his full height, sending a howl through the forest. He extended his claws as he cast a glance down at the dumbfounded Anko. "It's time for round 2, Anko-sensei," Naruto growled in a low voice. When Anko first saw Naruto in his second form, she was taken aback. It's one thing to hear about it, but it's quite another to actually see a golden werewolf in front of her. But she was ready for this kind of thing. She gave the blonde a menacing smile. Naruto felt uneasy when he saw the grin. Anko said nothing, but Anko-sensei asked, "What are you smiling at?" Rather, she gestured upward. When Naruto looked up, he saw a kick laced with chakra coming directly at his head. Blackness enveloped his world before he could act. Naruto woke up with his head hurting and his ears clearly ringing. Observing that he remained in his wolf soul form, he attempted to recall the events that transpired. After becoming incapacitated by snakes, he recalls having a fight with Anko in which he was soundly kicked. He looked up when Anko pointed her finger upward, and then there was darkness. To his embarrassment, his groan as he pulled himself up came out as a whine. To dispel the haze, he gave a shake of his head. He became alert when he heard someone laughing above him. After giving the air a quick sniff and not noticing anything strange, he looked up. A smirking Mitarashi Anko with a pen and paper in her hands was standing right above him on a large branch. "Good morning, Gaki. How was your nap?" snickered Anko. With a snarl of shame, Naruto stood up and stretched, feeling gratified as he heard his bones and muscles snap into place. He raised his head and inquired, "How long was I out?" "You've been out for around 10 minutes. For someone normal, the kick I hit your head with would have caved someone's skull or put them in a coma for a day or two after being healed. You recovering from it in 10 minutes with only a headache is quite an accomplishment, Gaki," praised Anko, clearly pleased. She leapt to her feet and gestured for Naruto to return to his seat. "Now that you're awake, it's time for me to give you an accurate account on what happened during our spar. For starters, I rate your skills to be in mid-chunin, but your lack of experience places you just above genin." Naruto rasped at the remarks. Even though Naruto was seated, Anko gave him a headshake that was just barely above her own. "Man, this kid is big." Anko smiled to himself, envisioning the boy growing into a huge force. When Anko glared at him, Naruto whimpered, "Let me continue, Gaki, so shut up and sit down." Nevertheless, he decided to remain silent. Naruto took the paper Anko was holding with his thumb and index finger because his hands were too large to hold it. "Now where was I? Oh yes, you did pretty good with the spar in terms of raw power and abilities, but your lack of experience in real-life shinobi combat made you almost useless. Despite what you can do, even a chunin can kill you. I think it was pure luck that you were able to defeat Mizuki and made toys with the Hokage's Anbu guards. That is your stats. Read it." Flipping the paper over, Naruto perused the statistics that Anko had jotted down about him. Name: Naruto Uzumaki. 13 years old. Gender: man. Rank: Tokubetsu Genin. Trained as an apprentice by Mitarashi Anko. Assassination and Demolition Squad is the designation. Stats on abilities: Power: A. Velocity: A. Quickness: A. S as the reflex. Training data: Taijutsu, see note. Strong stance but insufficient training in the art. Ninjutsu: Null Jutsu arsenal needs to be expanded in order to be used effectively in the field. Null Genjutsu, large reserves of chakra, urgently needs training in chakra control. Kenjutsu, B. Observation. Strong stance and strikes, but inexperience in the field. Advice: 1. Sparring. Uzumaki needs extensive experience fighting shinobi. Daily sparring requires about 2 hours of effort per day. 2. Jutsu arsenal. After identifying his elemental affinity, Uzumaki needs to study ninjutsu extensively. Recommendation: library. 3. Chakra control. To begin, practice basic chakra control using Kage Bunshin in large quantities to expedite the process. Uzumaki possesses enormous reserves of chakra, far beyond those of a Kage. After reading his stats, Naruto looked up and realized he needed a lot of work. Just as he opened his mouth to speak, Anko spoke first. "As you see, Gaki, you are a very powerful shinobi, but you don't have the experience to back it up. From our fight, I couldn't beat you in terms of speed and power, but I was able to because I have the experience. I planned ahead, checked your weakness and came up with a counter, and finally, I caught you by surprise which knocked you out. Even if you have all the jutsus in the world, it wouldn't matter much if you don't have the skill to use it properly. Same with your abilities. Anko stopped and took a deep breath before continuing. You are now my apprentice starting today, so I will be training you for a month before we starting going into missions. D rank missions are chores and I hate them, so we will forego that and go directly to C rank when you prove yourself to me. Also, all your training will be done in your human form. At the last part of the speech, Naruto interrupted. But Anko-sensei, I am very powerful in this form. Why can't I train with it? Gaki, you don't get it, do you? And it's your ability. If you become powerful in your human form, then it would only be amplified in your wolf form, since the information Hokage told me that when you change into this wolf soul thing enhances all your human soul abilities. The Junin clarified. The blonde werewolf waited for his sensei to continue, nodding his head. She seemed to have planned a lot while he was sleeping. Naruto snorted. Now before I was rudely interrupted, to which Anko chose to ignore him. However, you will be using your wolf form when we train in chakra control. We will alternate it every day. Keep in mind that your chakra reserves are greater in wolf form, so it would only be logical to train and perfect your chakra control in human form, then try what you learn when you are in wolf form so you won't encounter any problems in both states. Understood, Gaki? Naruto said. Yes, sensei. When will we start with the training? As his clothes materialized and he shifted back to human soul. Anko thought about that for a moment before answering. Well, I'm still going plan out your training program, which is quite different from what Junins usually give to their genins considering your bloodline, so, 3 days. I want you to be here in this clearing in 3 days' time at exactly 5 in the morning. Every minute you are late equals to 1 punishment coming from me. Anko's eyes sparkled with an eerie. Naruto feel uneasy. You don't have to bring your sword, just your standard kunai and shuriken. I want to build you up from scratch, starting with physical training and sparring. Understood. Naruto gave a nod. Good. Get going home, brat, and see you in 3 days. That was when Anko vanished in a cloud of smoke, indicating that it was a Kage Bunshin. With a grumpy expression, he took up his sword and left the clearing through Shunshin, determined to get home and get some rest. Naruto, who had an innate sense that Anko's training would ultimately result in torture, used the 3 days to unwind. And it would be directed towards him. After his spar with Anko, he went straight to bed and pondered the lessons he had learned from his personal sensei this afternoon. It's true that he was soundly defeated, outmatched, and given a wet dog kick to the rear, but he did gain something from the experience that will undoubtedly help him in his future endeavors as a Konoha shinobi. 1. Anko can help him with his inexperience and whip him into shape. Although he was undoubtedly stronger than his academy classmates, he immediately understood that there was a significant disparity in status. Secondly, his wolf soul would be meaningless if it were not supported by experience and skill. The saying that Soji had told him as a child made complete sense. What's the use of a very sharp kunai when the on who threw it didn't even hit the target? 3. Anko's observation of the battle allowed him to deduce that strengthening his human soul would result in a significant improvement in his wolf soul. It thrilled him to think of it. Naruto sighed and fell asleep, picturing different ways Anko would torment him while she laughed cruelly during his training. Naruto thought the 3 days were spent in complete leisure. He first went to see Tsunade for a checkup at the hospital. When he inquired about Anko's training theory, she fully agreed with the purple-haired Junin's theory that his wolf soul will magnify the powers of his human soul. Additionally, she gave Naruto a scroll containing various exercises designed specifically for him, as the standard exercises found in the library wouldn't have been effective given the quantity of chakra already present in his system. When they next meet in 3 days, he promised to give it to Anko. He then went to see the Hokage and talked with him for a while, sharing stories. The Hokage, who admitted to him guiltily that he had been watching the entire fight through his crystal ball, even offered him advice on how to improve his stance. The realization that his humiliation wasn't so secret after all made Naruto flush. All he could think of was that the old man, not Jiraiya, had seen it. The pervert with white hair would never let him forget it. He told Soji what had happened in the forest during their afternoon together on the first day. As he walked to his workshop, Soji laughed, and the old man had the gall to send Anko a gift for teaching the brat a lesson. But he did repay the old man by adding images of half-naked shinobi to the pages of his Ika Ika paradise. That day, the old man nearly suffered a heart attack. Naruto enjoyed his meal at Ichiraku Ramen and spent time with old man Tyuki and Ayame. It goes without saying that when he consumed 40 bowls of ramen in one sitting, he once again broke his record. While Tyuki was chanting Naruto's name non-stop, he walked out of the ramen stand with a satisfied expression on his face. To put it mildly, the second day was pretty enjoyable. Taking Anko's training advice to heart, he made a dozen shadow clones and gave them orders to search the Konoha library for any jutsu they could find. When the librarian noticed 12 Narutos rummaging through the library, losing scrolls, and fighting with one another, she passed out. Though he was able to make up for it with some Kaden and Suiten jutsus, he was a little disappointed that he only obtained 2 wind jutsus overall. The clone took notes on the methods and added a few more, carried them back to his apartment, and then vanished without telling Naruto what they had done. He worked at Soji's again in the afternoon and was shocked to see that only half of the stocks were left. He got to work right away, using shadow clones this time, and produced almost twice as much as the previous output, which, if the current demand continues, should last for a week or two. Naruto made the decision to unwind in the hot springs to relieve his sore muscles after a demanding day of work. After all, even a person with his capacity for healing occasionally needs to unwind. Many of the Leafs kunoichis frequented the Konoha hot springs in the entertainment district, so today was really special. Many worn-out kunoichis used this opportunity to unwind in peace as one of their peers was able to ascertain that the annoying pervert was out of town for the week. On this particular day, Ino, Hinata, Sakura, Kurenai, and Anko were taking advantage of some well-deserved rest and relaxation. They were letting go of the numerous stresses they had accumulated from their training by submerging themselves partially in the healing warm waters. When they heard the door from the male side of the hot springs open and close, everyone fell silent and relished the quiet. When they heard a voice that all but one of them recognized, they relaxed from their initial fear that the pervert might have returned early. A gleeful voice from the other side said, "I guess I'm the only one here, huh? Oh well, more peace and quiet for me," which made Anko and Hinata perk up a little. Anko laughed, drawing a chuckle from everyone. It seems that the Gaki chose this time to relax as well. Kurenai cast a curious glance at Anko. Who else? My handsome apprentice is currently across the baths, Anko remarked, finishing with a small chuckle. Anko laughed, Kurenai scowled, and Hinata glared daggers at her as Ino's eyes widened at the revelation and she shot out of the water and ran towards the partition. After scurrying around a little, she discovered a spy hole and peered inside. She nearly lost her breath at what she saw. There stood Naruto, nude, staring speculatively at the water. She caught a glimpse of Naruto's upper body, which featured well-defined muscles that none of their classmates ever possessed. As she descended, her gaze was fixed on the toned abs until she reached the bottom. Whack! With a calm and content expression on her face, Ino floated back up to the water after being thrown back by a huge nosebleed with a loud splash. She was stuttering. God, body, big, When Hinata activated her Byakugan out of curiosity, she saw something that also caused her to pass out severely bleeding from the nose. Sakura and Kurenai checked on the 2 unconscious genins right away, but Anko just gave a deviant giggle. The 2 needed several minutes to rouse Ino and Hinata. They both turned a deep red, but instead of saying anything, they kept what they had seen to themselves. Up until, "Wow, I guess that water is good that even my little wolf is enjoying it. I never knew that hot water can make it stand up like that." It's safe to say that Ino and Hinata have a severe nosebleed, and Kurenai, Sakura, and Anko have to take them to the hospital. To return them to normal, a few blood replenishers were required. Why the water in the women's baths was red that day was a mystery to the hot springs owner. On the third day, eager to receive training from Anko, Naruto made his way to the clearing in Training Ground 44. Observing that his sensei was still absent, he made the decision to perform a brief warm-up exercise. He undressed and hung his shirt from a low branch in the clearing. He warmed up with a few stretches to prevent straining any muscles, and then he jogged slowly around the clearing. When Anko arrived, he was on his 20th lap, so he stopped and moved in the direction of the Junin. Naruto said, "Good morning, Anko-sensei," with a happy tone. Anko, seeing Naruto's sweaty form, said, "Good morning, Gaki. I see that you're all fired up for training." She smiled, knowing that her apprentice was not afraid of a good challenge. Naruto smiled. "Oh, by the way, I've been looking forward to it since our spar," he said, taking a scroll out of his pocket and giving it to an astonished Anko. "Tsunade Ba-san asked me to give that to you." She made a whole new set of chakra control exercises since I have larger than normal reserves and the usual ones of red won't cut it. Curiously, Anko accepted the scroll and opened it. As she finished reading it, a sly smile appeared on his face. This is exactly what she has planned for the Gaki, so it's perfect. She secretly applauded the slug Sanin for being equally vicious during training. With Anko, the month-long sadistic training of hell began in earnest. The real thing dwarfed Naruto's nightmares of what Anko would do to him. To the delight of a cruel woman, the blonde werewolf cursed the snake Junin for the entire month. He was unaware that the more swearing he did, the more Anko enjoyed it and began to come up with fresh ideas for how to spice up the training. In the first 2 hours of training, Anko painstakingly ingrained the many shinobi combat lessons into his muscle and mental memory. He only made it through it because of his enhanced healing factor. After every session, he was left battered, burned, and injured from having to avoid punches loaded with chakra, a flurry of kunai and shuriken, vicious kicks to the head and ribs, fireballs, and other terrible beatings. They would exercise Tsunade's training scroll of Doom's chakra control for 3 hours, after which he would have 5 minutes of rest. Naruto observed that the exercises were the same as those the genins were doing in training, but with modifications made to suit his needs. Boulder walking was an easy substitute for the exercise of tree walking. Anko produced 2 boulders that were half the size of his body by using a Doden Jutsu. He was told to walk around the clearing on the boulder by using chakra to attach his feet to it. The first task was to expend enough chakra to enable you to walk around with the boulder attached to you. He made a very funny mistake on his first attempt. On his first attempt, he channeled so much chakra that he shot off like a rocket. Although the boulders did not survive, Anko was more than willing to provide for him. Unaware that Anko was adding more density to the boulders every 3 days to make them heavier, Naruto was perplexed as to why he was finding it difficult to move the damn thing. Anko wanted to master the control of chakras and strengthen Naruto's core, especially his legs. By the end of the month, Tsunade predicted, Naruto would have sufficiently shaped his chakra to make tree walking easy. To give Naruto time to get used to controlling his chakra, the first 3 days of training consisted solely of sparring and control. On the 4th day, Anko gave him the assignment to make 50 shadow clones so they could perform the exercise, a brutal brawl, while they carried out the training schedule. While the clones were having a great time running around the forest with big rocks under their feet, Anko was questioning Naruto about his knowledge of jutsus. The blonde werewolf told her sensei with pride that when he rested, he went to the library to look over the different skills kept there. Due to his lack of control, he hasn't practiced any yet because they are D to C rank techniques that require less chakra to perform. He spent the remainder of the first week honing the methods he had learned from the library and utilizing his shadow clones to expedite things. Why wasn't there a B to a rank technique in the library, Naruto wondered. Anko informed him that those scrolls are kept in a secure area of the library and are exclusively available to Chunins and Junins. Futon, Air Bullet, Futon, Gale Palm, and Futon, Grand Breakthrough were added to his ninjutsu arsenal after the first week. Anko taught him how to use the latter because the first 2 were too weak and unsuitable for any demolition missions they might have. If he got better before the Chunin exams, Anko promised to teach him more destructive techniques. Additionally, he discovered that his lack of proficiency in Raiden jutsus was due to his wind affinity. He was able to make up for it, though, by mastering a few Kaiden and Suiden jutsus, such as Kaiden, Grand Fireball and Suiden, Water Bullet. In the second training week, Naruto became proficient in the boulder walking exercise. After that, he was taught water walking and told to use clones to become an expert. The first chakra control exercise gave him above average control over his chakra, so he found the exercise to be fairly easy to master. When he was told to balance a kunai while water walking, the exercise became more difficult. Being able to water walk while holding 10 kunais between his fingers is the aim. Naruto merely moaned. However, Anko was unaware that Naruto continued to practice boulder walking with his clone in other areas of the forest, incorporating an additional exercise to increase the difficulty level for the blonde. The werewolf, whose lower body was already receiving a good workout, added physical training to his training regimen by carrying boulders during the chakra control exercise. An added benefit of this exercise was that it helped him become so much more focused that learning the modified water walking exercise was simple. Naruto was nearly at the end of the week when Anko made him wear chakra weights on his legs and arms. These weights were made of metal bands with seals all over them, not like the ones made a guy and his pupil Rock Lee used. The wearer's chakra will be automatically absorbed by the seals, which will then raise its weight beyond what the wearer is able to achieve. Let's just say that when Naruto first tried it on, Anko and he were both surprised to learn that each band had a 200-pound starting weight, requiring Naruto to carry 800 pounds. The training ground reverberated with the sound of Anko's savage cries and Naruto's curses. The blonde werewolf was also unaware that Anko received the weights from Soji to aid the brat in his training. It was, after all, a gift. Anko and Naruto discovered that the shadow clones were wearing the same weights as the original, which was an added bonus. He found it difficult to perform boulder and water walk with the additional weights, but he persisted and achieved better than anticipated results. Naruto's abilities experienced exponential growth as a result of Anko and Tsunade's training of Doom. Through their daily sparring sessions, Anko taught Naruto how to take the initiative and turn the tide of battle, sharpen his focus to identify his opponent's weaknesses, and develop quick-witted, highly skilled strategies. Anko has become more adept at ambushing him with fireballs at random, which has allowed him to become more proficient with his chakra shields and be able to summon them quickly. His collection of ninjutsu techniques remained unchanged, but he continued to hone them using his clones so that he could execute them quickly enough to make a Junin perspire. Although Anko realized that her blonde apprentice was incapable of mastering the illusionary art, he was still incredibly bad at genjutsu and could easily break illusions up to a rank by flaring them out. As a result, Anko had to teach Naruto how to detect genjutsu. Naruto's skill level increased to at least high chunin by the end of the month, but he still lacked field mission experience. Anko promised to fix that after the training is over. He was accustomed to his 1,000-pound chakra weights by this point. Naruto's body's capacity for healing allowed him to quickly adjust to the weights, and he was ecstatic about how quickly he could move when he switched them off. Anko gave him the instruction to only remove the weights in an emergency to allow his body to adjust as it gradually increased. After training, Anko gave Naruto a 2-day break to ensure he was well rested and ready for non-stop missions. During his downtime, Naruto engaged in activities such as catching up with the Hokage, Tsunade, the Tsuki family, and working at Soji's shop. The latter involved preparing fresh stock to ensure that it never ran out, as Anko had promised that Naruto would be spending a lot of time away from the village on C-rank missions. When Naruto went to the bank to top off his running wallet, his eyes lit up. He saw that he had already accrued a substantial sum of ryo, roughly 2 million, when he checked his balance. He asked Soji about it right away, and the old man dismissed his worries, telling him that he was receiving 75% of the profit, with 25% going toward Soji's portion of the company and raw materials. Soji told Naruto that he deserved it because he was doing all the work and he was only watching out for the shop and entertaining customers, despite Naruto's protests that they should split it in half. The blonde werewolf was unaware that Soji had already altered the business's deed to use Naruto's name because of his advanced age. He loved Naruto and intended to retire from the company soon, but he would stay on to work for him. When he achieves Chunin, he will give the shop to the Gaki as a gift and tell him later. As Team Chimera stood before the Hokage, they anticipated receiving their first C-rank mission from the elderly man. When Naruto learned that Anko and he had both been given the Chimera moniker, he was taken aback, but the purple-haired Junin gave him an explanation of why. It makes sense that their name would be given the moniker Chimera, as each of them has a unique animal call that has been strengthened by combining elements of several different animals. Naruto was ecstatic to accept the name. As Anko was the team's commanding officer, the Hokage gave her the scroll. Your mission is a C-rank mission to a town east of Konoha that is plagued by bandits for the past months. The mayor requested the services of Konoha shinobi when they started abducting women. From the intel that came with the mission, the bandits are holed up in one of the large forests in the area which requires both of your skills in order to find them and put them out of business, explained the elderly commander. Anko frowned as she perused the scroll's contents and came across something. Hokage-sama, it says here that we are instructed by the mayor of the town to meet with him in 2 days' time, but judging from the date the mission was created, this gives us until tomorrow morning. We can easily get there in time, but both Gaki and I would be tired to do anything else when we get there. Naruto scowled, then smiled as a thought occurred to him. Don't sweat it, Anko-sensei. I have a plan and I'm sure that you'll like it. Anko regarded Naruto closely, but she still had faith in him. After giving a nod, she turned to face the giggling Hokage, who was already aware of Naruto's strategy for accelerating their journey. Naruto was, after all, a speed freak, especially in his other form. She tucked the scroll into her coat pocket and turned to face Naruto. Understood, Hokage-sama. Team Chimera accepts this mission. Go and prepare for the mission Gaki. Meet me at the eastern gate in 30 minutes. With a nod, Naruto and Anko left the room together, determined to complete this mission as quickly as possible. Following the mission briefing, Naruto went home right away and stocked up on the necessary supplies. He went to his armory and sealed the standard supplies, 300 shurikens, 500 kunais, and 100 exploding tags for a mission involving big numbers. In case something happened, he also sealed camping and medical supplies in a different scroll. He swapped his outfit for one he had saved for missions, an Anko-like chain mesh shirt that wouldn't get in the way of his lightning-fast fighting. In order to prevent overheating during prolonged battles, Naruto also made sure that his skin was exposed to the outside air when designing the shirt. Gray cargo pants with pockets for his shurikens and kunais and loops for his scrolls on the belt completed his ensemble. He tied his Konoha headband on his right bicep and put on a white coat that resembled the one his sensei wears. Before heading to the gate, he double-checked his gear and fastened the sword to his back. When Naruto got to the gate, Anko was there to greet him. To keep them hidden from view, he motioned for Anko to follow him into the forest. Curious Anko trailed after him. Anko said something when they were no longer visible. Okay Gaki, before you tell me this plan of yours, tell me what supplies you brought with you. Naruto gave a nod. He produced a pair of scrolls, one green and one black. The black one is our basic shinobi supplies for such missions as you instructed me during training. I packed 500 kunais, 300 shurikens, and 100 exploding tags. The green scroll is our medical and camping supplies, which include chakra and blood pills, 2 first aid kits, extra bandages, splints, tents, sleeping bags, and a week's supply of food rations just in case if we need to camp out in the forest. Anko gave a whistle. Nice Gaki. I guess my training paid off. I'm proud of you. Now, how do you plan to get us to the town in just one day? From the distance, it would take 3 days for us to get there on foot and 1.5 days if we use chakra-enhanced speed. Naruto said with joy, simple sensei. I'm going to carry you. Anko looked at him in disbelief. What, carry me? That's the worst plan I have heard in my entire career as a shinobi, screamed Anko. The fair-haired werewolf held up his hand to break Anko's tirade. Naruto concluded with a smile that Anko readily returned when she realized the scope of the plan. Sensei, I will carry you in my wolf soul and I will run all the way without my weights on. With the speed I have in my wolf state, we can easily get there in 8 hours tops and I won't even get tired from doing it. Anko demanded with a seductive leer, good going, Gaki, but I'm not making you carry me. I'll ride you instead. The innuendo made Naruto blush, and it got worse when Anko grinned seductively at him. It dawned on him that his sadistic sensei had said it deliberately. With a growl, he transformed into a wolf and squatted on all fours, gesturing for Anko to join him. To the blonde's dismay, the Junin leapt excitedly onto Naruto's back, transforming him into a horse and pointing in the direction they were going. The blonde howled and pumped chakra into his muscles before taking off quickly and tearing up a lot of dirt along the way. Anko was cheering him on the entire way. Anko and his werewolf apprentice were having fun traveling at a fast pace. She changed into a lotus position and used chakra to attach herself to Naruto's back after realizing how soft and comfy his back was. This prevented her from falling off. When she rearranged her seating during the romp, Naruto turned to face her, but he ignored it when Anko simply smiled at him. Junin, who had purple hair, discovered that Naruto was incredibly swift in this form. It appeared that he was just as quick without his weights as Guy. Their training regimen appeared to have paid off, proving her theory. She was astounded by how Naruto dashed across the forest, dodging hazards and finding cover in the trees when the ground was too dangerous to run on. Shivering with fear, she even saw a pack of bears clearing the way as he zoomed past them. It appears that the wild animals that were native to this area of the forest were frightened off by Naruto's wolf soul. The thrill of the ride made her laugh and cheer the entire time. Anko was amazed that they arrived a mile beyond the town they were traveling through in record time, 6 hours as opposed to the anticipated 8. The blonde heard her call to stop and slowed down, eventually coming to a complete stop. With a big smile on his face, Naruto transformed back into a human after she leapt from her cozy perch. He wasn't breathing heavily from his constant running. Anko worriedly inquired, "So how was it, Gaki? Tired? Need to rest?" Long-term usage of Naruto's wolf soul form has not yet been tested. Naruto merely gave her a smile. "I'm feeling good, sensei. It seems like my wolf soul loves to travel at high speeds. I'm not even tired and only around 1% of my chakra was used during the entire trip. Heck, my muscles aren't even sore." He grumbled as his stomach growled. "I'm hungry though." Anko laughed. She was still in awe of the blonde. She was happy that she hired the boy as a trainee. With him around, life was never dull. "All right, Gaki, let's go into town on foot and meet the mayor, then let's find something for you to eat." Once in town, they met with the mayor, who gave them an update on the situation. It appeared that the bandits had already kidnapped 15 women. Naruto heard that the mayor was a little scared, so he scowled and growled. Anko and Naruto told the mayor they would take care of it and then went to a restaurant next to the town hall. The Junin was shocked by how much food Naruto was consuming. He devoured the food so quickly that it would have made an Akamichi green with envy. The owner grinned and thanked Naruto for his payment, telling them that the restaurant is always open for them at any time. Naruto had almost completely cleared the restaurant of all its food. They set up camp in the forest and got ready to scout the area in hopes of discovering a trail that would lead them to the bandits. Anko, however, discussed the mission with Naruto before they took that action. "Gaki, this mission will force you to do one thing that all shinobis are going to do in the field, kill. Do you think you can handle that?" asked Anko of her apprentice. With a gloomy expression, Naruto scowled. He became aware that he might have to kill in order to complete this mission after Anko informed him of the circumstances. When his wolf soul learned that the criminals had kidnapped women, he demanded vengeance. Males were expected by the pack code to defend all females, strong and weak. But the thought of taking a life terrified his human soul. He let out a sigh. "I don't know, Anko-sensei. My wolf is excited in ending their life because of what they did, but the human part of me is scared in taking a life," murmured Naruto. A hand rested on his shoulder by Anko. "It's part of the job, Gaki. Even in my years of experience in this job, I still shudder every time I take a life, but I tell myself that every criminal I kill is one less innocent being harmed. It helps thinking about it, but not much. It's what makes us human, you see. If you start to enjoy the act of killing, then you're no different than them, so take heart in the fact that you are averse to taking a life but will do so if needed." Naruto sighed once more and nodded. His nerves are being fortified by determination at what he is going to do to the bandits and other missions in the future. He smiled appreciatively at his mentor, saying, "I understand, Anko-sensei. Thanks for telling me that." Anko nodded and grinned, then got up to search the area for the bandits' trail. Finding the bandit camp hidden deep within the forest didn't take long for Team Chimera. Stakes made of wood guarded the camp, and a cave at its rear seemed to be where they operated from behind it. In order to gather information about the number of bandits in the area, possible missing members of the group, and the whereabouts of the hostages, Anko called forth 12 small snakes to survey the area. Hiding out in a tree overlooking the camp, Anko and Naruto watched as a variety of bandits wielding rudimentary weapons such as swords, axes, and spears patrolled the area. Naruto strained to hear the boisterous sounds of drinking coming from the encampment as they discussed various topics such as their next raid into town, selling them as slaves, and their hostages. As soon as they said the words, Naruto's expression darkened. An hour later, Anko's snakes reappeared and gave them a detailed assessment of the camp. "Okay, Gaki, I got the information we need, and we need to come up with a way to infiltrate the camp, rescue the hostages, and wipe them all out so they won't terrorize the town again. According to my snakes, there are around 55 bandits in the area, and 5 of them have shinobi training, judging from their chakra levels, roughly above Genin but below Chunin. The hostages are inside the cave in a large cage guarded by 2 bandits. Their leader seems to be in one of the rooms carved onto the cave inside." "Any ideas?" asked Anko following her response. Although she could have easily devised a plan for this, she saw it as an opportunity to put her apprentice to the test in terms of his ability to devise plans on the spot. "Naruto did not let me down." With a frown, Naruto focused his mental energies on devising a plausible strategy to free the hostages. He understood that the hostages would be in danger if he entered with jutsus flying. To get into the cave and free the hostages, they must be stealthy and covert. One of us needs to distract the guards so the other can go in and secure the hostages. The missing nins won't be a problem since their levels are below us, but it's best not to underestimate them. Anko nodded and encouraged him to continue. She gave Naruto complete control to see how far he had come. When we scouted the forest earlier, there is a large population of wolves in the area and they recognized me and left me alone. It would be safe to say that the bandits knows about the wolves, so I can use my summons to distract the guards while you sneak in and kill the ones guarding the hostages and keep them safe. You send a signal that the women are secured, then I'll go into full frontal assault on them. What do you think? Naruto completed his strategy. Anko smiled. Good work, Gaki. Your plan is workable, plain and simple, yet effective for the mission. I'll infiltrate the camp when you start your distraction in 20 minutes. Don't kill them, just scare them a bit to keep their eyes away from the cave. That should give me enough time to secure the place and kill whoever is in it. I'll summon one of my large pets to protect the hostages and I'll join you in slaughtering the rest. I'll send out a fireball from inside the cave towards the opening. That will be your signal to attack. Understood. With a nod, Naruto and Anko parted ways to begin the procedure, with Naruto wearing a somber expression and Anko grinning viciously. Naruto moved away from the bandit camp and called forth 12 small one-tailed wolves, giving them instructions to use fear-mongering to deflect Anko's attention. After accepting the plan, the wolves ran into the forest that surrounded the camp. The diversion was successful because a few minutes later, howls resounded throughout the forest and shouts from the bandit camp were audible. When Anko gives the order to confuse the group before they launch the attack, the blonde werewolf smiled, made 6 shadow clones, and gave them kunais with exploding tags to be rained down on the camp. From the forest, a small snake slithered in the direction of the bandit camp. It waited to hear the howls of the wolves in the forest and the terrified cries of the bandits on the walkabout. Unnoticed, the small snake slithered into the cave by adhering to the shadows surrounding the camp's edge. The snake slithered to a shadowed corner and grew larger when it reached a large, hollow section of the cave. The mouth parted, revealing a woman emerging from it. The purple-haired woman came out of its mouth fully, and then vanished in a puff of smoke, the snake growing back to its original size. With a sly smile on his face, Anko followed the shadows to the next room where the hostages were being held. She easily slipped behind one of the guards since they were occupied with drinking, playing cards, and making fun of the other person with wild tales. Once she was in position, she threw a kunai at one of the bandits, striking the target between the eyes and causing it to fall to the ground lifeless. Anko cut the other bandit's throat and covered his mouth with her hand just as he was about to scream for help. Nothing escaped her watchful eye. She dragged both bodies into a dimly lit corner and knelt down, using her senses to see if her successful murder went unreported. She decided it had gone well after 5 minutes when she crept over to the cage and discovered the women curled up, fast asleep. Anko became furious when she smelled their unwashed bodies wafting into her nose. She put an iron grip on her desire for blood and carried out the task. Sneaking out of the cage containing the hostages, Anko made his way to the corner where the boss's room was. The leader was sound asleep, snoring, and the room smelled of sake when she slowly opened the door. She moved closer to her target, covering the dying man's mouth to stop any sound from escaping, and sank her kunai into his heart. When the bandit's eyes lost their life-giving light, she exited the room. After conducting a brief reconnaissance of the cave, she found that nobody else was present, indicating that the remaining bandits are likely outside the camp. With a smile of expectation, she called forth a massive snake to protect the hostages as she broke through the seals to release a massive fireball from the cave's opening, indicating to her apprentice that it was time to launch the attack. A huge ball of fire shot out from the entrance of the cave, startling and frightening the bandit. When Naruto noticed the signal, he mentally ordered his clones to begin bombarding. Naruto's shadow clones, who vanished after the mission was completed, sent him their view of the camp from their vantage point, giving the blonde werewolf a rough idea of the enemy's placement and helping him come up with an attack plan. Moments later, the entire bandit camp was littered with explosions. Naruto already had his claws out and leapt down from the tree he was perched on. With a simple swipe of his metal claws, he easily disemboweled a startled bandit by dropping down in front of him. He was disgusted by what he saw, but he forced himself to run in the direction of the camp. When they noticed him, a few bandits charged forward, brandishing their swords to slay the invader. Without any delay, Naruto used his clawed fist to attack one of the bandits, stabbing him in the shoulder so painfully that the bandit dropped his weapon. With his other hand up, Naruto used his chakra shield to block the other bandit's downward slash, sending sparks flying in the process. He effectively freed his other hand by kicking the bandit he had stabbed in the stomach, and then he used it to disembowel the other one. After defeating both of his opponents, he turned to face Anko, who was merrily dispatching the bandits close to the cave with both hands gripping kunais. He gave a nod and bounded toward the opposite end, where a few tents held additional bandits. His goal was to get to his destination as quickly as possible, so he put down anyone who stood in his way with ease. When he reached a tent, he opened it prepared to launch an assault. He was sickened by what he saw and was filled with rage. A dead woman was being raped by one of the bandits, who had cut her throat. He growled, sickened by what he saw. The bandit spun around as soon as he heard the sound, but before he could say anything, Naruto decapitated him with a single swipe of his claws. Naruto could see the horror that was being inflicted on the poor woman now that the bandit was out of the way. Her body was covered in bruises and wounds that made him sick, and she had no clothes on. With blood still streaming from the wound on her throat, her eyes remained open and her mouth opened in a silent scream. He swallowed his revulsion and went up to where the woman was, closing her eyes forever. As Naruto emerged from the tent, his wolf soul was filled with an overwhelming rage that demanded blood, retribution, and their lives. His blood boiled with rage and anger, and the thought of the dead woman in the tent made him howl with unadulterated rage. With a relish for revenge, he shifted into his wolf soul and let out a howl so strong it froze everyone in the clearing. From the source of the howl, the bandits peered up and saw a sight straight out of their nightmares. A 9-foot-tall golden werewolf with fangs glistening in the moonlight, rage-filled amber eyes, and dagger-sized, razor-sharp claws searching for flesh and blood. The enraged werewolf let out another howl, this one a fierce one, before lunging headfirst into a throng of trembling bandits, his teeth and claws tearing as efficiently through flesh and armor as his strength did. Projectiles were easily dodged, and weapons were removed with ease. The instincts of a killer and a wild animal emerged from Naruto's enraged mind, instincts he had previously denied existed. Naruto was in complete control and readily gave into his instincts despite his bloodlust, enjoying the sense of liberation it offered him. He continued to hack and slash his way through the group of bandits, sending more blood and flesh flying. The camp was crowded with the dead and dying during the brief battle. A few fled in terror, making a silent promise to themselves to flee from the golden werewolf that materialized among them. Another agonized howl was let out by the werewolf known as Naruto, this one in mourning for a woman who was killed by the deranged thoughts of man. Alongside him howling in sorrow and the loss of his innocence was the wolf in the forest. Unbeknownst to Naruto, Anko had already freed the hostages, and they had witnessed the golden werewolf transform back into a boy, not a man, who had spared them from a cruel existence. The women they saved were amazed at what they saw and felt thankful instead of afraid. The Golden Wolf of Konoha legend was thus born. Anko gave Naruto the order to accompany the women back to the village in order to ensure their safety after tending to some of the injured hostages. In order to spare the women from having to walk while weak, Naruto made one clone for each woman and transported them to town. They began the cleanup task by gathering all the dead in the center of the camp and setting them on fire using a Kaiden jutsu. Naruto felt a little queasy from the smell of burning flesh, but he forced himself to ignore it and continued working. Together, they emptied the camp of all valuables and stored them inside the scroll for a later inspection. As part of the shinobi code, you had to make sure that you cleaned up any camp you attacked, packed up the spoils for your own use, and left no evidence of your offense. Using the clones to their advantage, Naruto and Anko sealed up weapons, papers, and even some cash that were lying around and on the corpses. After the deed was completed, they both planted explosive tags throughout the camp, including the cave system, in order to tidy up the area and prevent future bandits from using it to terrorize the closest town for profit. With a tiny burst of chakra, they set off the explosives as they exited the clearing. When they arrived in town the following day, they were met with a friendly sight. The townspeople were applauding them like the heroes they are, and the mayor was there to congratulate them on a job well done. When the women he saved gave him hugs and kisses on the cheek and remarked on how brave he was for saving them and how adorable and fluffy he looked as a werewolf, Naruto blushed. With grace and promptness, Naruto left the group and made his way to the hotel, where he politely requested a room from the courteous receptionist and then hurried to his room. His sensei only needs to find the right room because he had no intention of leaving right now to avoid drawing unwanted attention. He had already discussed with Anko that they would stay for a day or two to get his bearings following what he had experienced from the mission. With a sigh, he headed straight to the restroom. Right now, I would really appreciate a shower. When he undressed, he discovered that most of his dirt was from when he was a wolf and that he wasn't actually all that dirty aside from a few drops of blood on his clothes. After adjusting the water's temperature to his preference, he turned on the shower, slid into the stall, and allowed the hot water to wash away his worries. His thoughts drifted to the mission, and he felt ashamed of himself for brutally murdering so many of them while he was furious. But the thought of the dead woman brought him some peace, because he knew that the people he killed were criminals and that many others would be safe without them. He let out another sigh and showered. He also transitioned into his wolf soul because, even after his transformation, he had learned early in life that the dirt he had acquired while a wolf would not disappear. Though the idea made him laugh, he didn't want to scare some poor bloke by changing into a blood-covered werewolf in the middle of a mission. He needed nearly 60 minutes to thoroughly clean both forms. Because his wolf form was too large for the shower, he had to crouch low in order to ensure that the water hit him. This caused him problems. Right now, he would give anything to be near a cool river or stream, similar to the ones in the Forest of Death where he used to frequently take a bath following his training sessions with Anko. When he had all the dried blood out of his fur, he changed back. After drying off with a towel, he came out of the restroom to see Anko writing something on the mission scroll. She smiled at Naruto as he came out of the shower. With a seductive smile that made Naruto blush, she continued, "How are you, Gaki? You didn't have to run out on those women, you know. They were just showing their appreciation." Blonde with a blush, "Shut up, Anko-sensei." He withdrew a green scroll from his filthy clothes and opened a new batch with a puff of smoke. "What are we going to do now, sensei? Are we going back to Konoha?" Anko gave a headshake. Anko, who already knew Naruto's response in advance but chose to hear it directly from the source, said, "We will be leaving tomorrow morning. I'm going to be spending the rest of the afternoon with the mayor discussing the payment for the mission. I have decided to give them the money we got from the camp as a form of compensation for the women. Is that okay with you?" Shrugging, Naruto turned to go change into clean clothes in the bathroom. "I don't really care about the money, sensei. It is a good idea to give it to them since that should help them get over the situation." He was thinking about it. "However, I want the weapons since I can melt the metals and I can reuse them for the shop." Anko nodded, agreeing that it was a good plan because, as metals were already expensive, obtaining materials without having to pay for them has always been the shinobi's preferred course of action. She left the room without waiting for a response, saying, "Okay, Gaki. I'm going out for a bit to meet with the mayor. We can talk later when I get back and have dinner in the restaurant." With a shrug, Naruto changed immediately because his sensei was not present. Cheers broke out as Anko and Naruto left the town they had just rescued. The women gave Naruto hugs and one by one cheek kisses, and it made his cheeks burn with shame. Anko continued to laugh and offered no assistance in stopping the female stampede. Naruto asked her if she wanted to leave the same way they had come after they left town. Anko refused, saying that he needed to run all the way to Konoha as training. They both used chakra to strengthen their legs as they dashed back to their hometown, leaving a trail of dust in their wake. Anko called for a halt and set up camp when they were a few miles away from the village. He wanted to get some rest before returning to the village early the next day. They talked about the mission all night long, with Naruto opening up to Anko and the blonde receiving some guidance from him. Naruto's sensei's words helped him sleep peacefully that night. Since they were already close enough to the village, they returned slowly in order to save their energy for the next day. After confirming the mission's success, the Chunin guards allowed them entry and proceeded to the Hokage Tower for a debriefing. They went into the Hokage's office and filled him in on every detail of the mission, providing their unique viewpoint to ensure the Hokage was aware of all the facts. The elderly man complimented Naruto for a job well done with the planning and execution rather than chastise him for revealing his metamorphosis to the local ladies. Anko grinned proudly for her apprentice after the Hokage gave Naruto a compliment. The Hokage instructed them to pick up their pay from the mission office downstairs and take 2 days off before proceeding to another mission, so they both left. After leaving, Naruto and Anko agreed to meet in the Hokage's office in 2 days to continue the blonde's experience with a mission. Naruto was rudely awakened the following day by a loud knock on his front door. He walked blearily towards the door and opened it, revealing one of the Hokage's Anbu guards, all the while moaning about how unfair it was all. "Uzumaki-san, the Hokage requests your presence immediately for an emergency mission," stated the masked Anbu. After giving a loud groan, Naruto nodded, promising to comply, and the messenger vanished into thin air. Acknowledging that emergency missions typically entailed grave matters, he promptly showered, changed into mission attire, and retrieved the scrolls that were ready for any future missions. To be sure he wouldn't have to return to replenish, he took 2 of each item. With a swift motion, he employed Shunshin to appear in front of the Hokage's office, knock, and enter. Upon noticing the 2 people in the room with somber expressions, Naruto said, "Yo Hokage Gigi, Anko-sensei. What seems to be the problem?" The mood was screaming serious for the fair-haired genin. "Thanks for coming, Naruto-kun. A few days ago, I assigned a mission to Team 7 for Wave Country to protect a bridge builder named Tazuna. However, a message scroll arrived this morning from Kakashi requesting for backup since the mission was more than a simple C rank. They encountered the Demon Brothers of the Mist, both C rank missing nins, en route to Wave. They were quickly dispatched and interrogated." The Hokage stopped and took a deep breath through his pipe and exhaling the smoke before continuing. From the interrogation, it seems that Gato of Gato Industries hired a group of missing nins to help him kill the bridge builder. From what Kakashi found out, the group includes the Demon Brothers and an A-rank missing nin, Momochi Zabuza, along with his masked assistant. Your mission is to rendezvous with Team 7, who is currently camped out a few miles east of Konoha, and protect the bridge builder. He handed Anko the scroll. "Anko, I want you and Kakashi to take command of the mission, while Naruto-kun here will be the second in command just in case both of you are indisposed." Naruto was taken aback at receiving such a title within the team. Hokage Gigi, are you sure you're going to put me as a second in charge? I mean, I just became a genin and just had only 1 mission so far under my belt." The elderly leader nodded and grinned. "Yes, Naruto-kun, the position suits you well. After all, it was your plan with a little help from Anko that made you successful in your prior mission. I have full confidence in all your abilities. So any questions?" Both shook their heads and left right away because they had prepared for this kind of thing. However, the Hokage said something that made Naruto and Anko smile before they could leave the office. "Naruto, I think it's fine time that the rest of Konoha to know about the Golden Wolf, don't you think?" With delight, they both nodded and walked away from the office, heading for the gate. Naruto and Anko rode Shunshin to the east gate. Naruto said, "So sensei, shall we go?" and was prepared to leave. Anko grinned and said, "Sure thing, Gaki. We need speed so you know what to do." He was thrilled to share Team Chimera's one and only secret. With a wolf-like smile, Naruto transformed into a large wolf form, much to the surprise of everyone in attendance. With a great howl, he dropped to the ground and prepared to take off. After jumping off, Anko landed on Naruto's back and took a comfortable seat. Shortly after, Naruto exited the gate at a speed that would have made a guy shaking in fear. Many questions were answered by those who witnessed Naruto's transformation into a wolf, particularly in relation to the enigmatic howls that occasionally reverberated through the village. The news quickly spread throughout the village, and those who were already aware of the secret simply grinned. Presently, Kakashi, Team 7, and the bridge builder Tazuna were holed up in the woods next to the main road, awaiting Konoha's reinforcement. A big blur appeared in the center of the camp, leaping from the forest behind them as they were all relaxing and kicking back. The moment Kakashi saw the terrified bridge builder, who had Team 7 encircled and positioned in a defensive position, he leapt in front of him, causing them to nearly pass out. A massive golden werewolf with a smirking Anko perched on its back stood before them. The animals in the vicinity were all terrified by the wolf's loud howl. Anko nearly squealed with delight when she saw the faces of Team 7 and Kakashi. With self-control, she leapt off the howling wolf and sat on its haunches, exposing its fangs and claws to the public. Before Anko revealed himself to Naruto, the two had already discussed their plans for meeting up with Team 7 and decided that Naruto would remain in his wolf form. Anko, who was extremely happy, exclaimed, "Yo Kakashi! Hokage-sama sent us here to be your backup for the mission." With its large, razor-sharp fangs and claws, the wolf was sporting a defensive and nervous expression, but it did not take its eyes off of it. Anko, what's that?" Kakashi asked, gesturing to the big creature behind her with an almost hysterical expression. She turned to face the still smiling Naruto and said, "Oh, him. He is part of the backup." It was a sign they had worked out before going into the camp. When Naruto noticed the smirk, he got to his feet, let out a howl that was so loud that it caused Sakura to scream, Sasuke to urinate in his pants, and Sai to jump out of fear. To the surprise of everyone in the clearing, The blonde werewolf smiled and stretched out a little to display his massive, towering presence before slowly returning to human form. He snapped them out of their shock by committing their expression to memory for later. He gave them a big smile and said, "Yo, Kakashi-sensei, Sakura, Sasuke, Sai, Tazuna-san. How are you guys doing?" Anko and Naruto burst into laughter as everyone else passed out. When Team 7, Kakashi, and Tazuna awoke, Naruto was tying the unconscious demon brothers to the back of a big three-tailed messenger wolf. Anko was consuming a stick of dango that she had obediently placed inside one of her pouch's storage scrolls. Anko noticed that Kakashi was awake. "Yo Kakashi, nice of you to wake up. I suggest you get your cute genins up and operational since we will need to break camp so we can get the client back to Wave and guard him while he finish that bridge of his. The sooner he gets it done, the sooner we can go back to Konoha." She finished tossing him the mission scroll they received from their hostage. After catching the scroll, Kakashi perused the missive. He was taken aback to learn that Anko will be working with him on the mission instead of just him. But what shocked him was that Hokage-sama made Naruto the second in command. He turned to see Naruto giving the wolf some last-minute instructions before it raced off to drop off the luggage in Konoha. Kakashi questioned, "Naruto, where did you get the wolf?" Naruto turned to face the group and said, "Hello Kakashi-sensei. That was one of my wolf summons. Anko-sensei told me to bring one out and have it deliver the demon brothers to Konoha so Ibiki can interrogate them." He caught Team 7's eyes on him. He grinned. "Yo Sakura, Sasuke, Sai. How you all doing?" Sakura, who was obviously terrified, said, "Naruto, how in the world did you turn into that wolf?" The blonde scowled as she recognized Sakura's fearful tone in her question. Naruto replied, "That was part of my bloodline. I came from a tribe with the ability to shapeshift into a half-man, half-wolf hybrid. What you saw earlier was my wolf form. Since Anko-sensei wanted to get here as fast as possible, we decided to go wolf to speed up our travels." Naruto then sat down next to Anko, who offered him one of her dango, which he gratefully accepted. Everyone appeared satisfied with the response, despite the three genins continuing to stare at him warily. Naruto didn't give a damn about what other people thought of him because his beloved people already knew and accepted his secrets. Kakashi addressed the entire group. He smiled at Naruto and said, "Okay team. Team Chimera is our backup consisting of Mitarashi Anko, Tokubetsu Junin, and Uzumaki Naruto, Tokubetsu Genin. The rank was because of your bloodline, right?" The boy with blonde hair simply smiled back and nodded before returning to his dango. "The mission parameters have changed. This is no longer a simple C-rank escort mission. Due to the large possibility of encountering more missing nins in the future, this will become an A-rank bodyguard mission. Our directive is to get Tazuna-san safely to Wave and protect him until he finishes the bridge. Team Chimera is tasked to take care of Gato during the course of the mission. Anko and me will be in charge. Second in command will be Naruto." "Understood." Sakura appeared uneasy, even though Sai seemed to agree with her. But Sasuke made the decision to express his worries. "How come Naruto gets to be second in command? This is our mission, not theirs." Kakashi shrugged, but she still decided to respond to him. "It's not up to us to question Hokage-sama's orders. We just have to follow them." According to the mission scroll, it explained that Naruto already have experience in terms of missions similar to our own, so it was wise of Hokage-sama to put him in charge in case me and Anko is incapacitated or indisposed. With a simple grunt, Sasuke turned back to pack in the tent and was followed by the other members of Team 7. Upon observing Sasuke's expression, Anko and Naruto scowled. With his gaze fixed on the Uchiha who was tearing down their tents, Anko questioned, "Your genin is going to be a problem, Kakashi. Haven't you beaten the arrogance out of him yet?" With a sigh, Kakashi took a seat in front of Team Chimera. "I don't think that beating the arrogance out of him is possible at this point. His attitude is already ingrained into him due to the ex-council's interference. I was even forced to just avoid giving Hokage-sama a headache when the civilians react to failing the Uchiha." Anko simply grunted and noted that he would be keeping an eye on the Uchiha during the mission. Naruto nodded, indicating that he understood the silent instruction. Team Chimera and Team 7 quickly resumed their journey in the direction of Wave. Tazuna told them that a friend of his would be waiting for them at a secluded beach, where he would transport them to Wave while concealing their passage with mist. They arrayed themselves defensively around Tazuna, with Sasuke and Sai on either side of them, Kakashi in front, Sakura with Tazuna, and Team Chimera at the back. They had no trouble getting to the previously mentioned beach, but a problem with their travel arose. They simply couldn't fit in the boat because no one told Tazuna's friend about their new phone number. Anko figured out the solution by telling Kakashi and Team 7 to board the boat, and she and Naruto would stand watch at their sides. Despite Naruto's prior knowledge of water walking, the one-eyed Junin was taken aback by this. Nevertheless, he remained silent and gestured for his group to board the boat. Anko started to follow them toward the water as the boat pushed off, but Naruto stopped her. Anko-sensei, I want you to ride my back to conserve your chakra just in case we encounter stronger enemies ahead, told Naruto. Anko raised an eyebrow as she turned to face Naruto. I can water walk to and from Wave without problems, Gaki. You don't have to worry. Naruto merely gave a headshake. Sensei, if we encounter Momochi Zabuza later, we will be in deep trouble without you at 100%. I don't think I can hold him off while you rest up. Besides, with my chakra reserves, going to Wave in my other form would be easy. Please, Sensei, Naruto begged, almost sounding like a whine. Anko reluctantly concurred, secretly admiring Naruto for his forward thinking. Furthermore, who was she to question about elegant travel? She laughed at the idea, making Naruto laugh at his sensei's antics and start to perspire. Anko leapt onto Naruto's back and settled in as he transformed into a wolf. The boat was already a good distance ahead of them, so he channeled chakra to his hands and legs before running in that direction. When Team 7, Kakashi, Tazuna, and the boatman noticed a big wolf running toward them and Anko smiling, they were taken aback. The latter was about to yell a warning, but Tazuna put his hand to his mouth and silenced him. The wolf and Junin decelerated and positioned themselves next to the boat, keeping their senses alert for any approaching dangers. Since they have to move stealthily to avoid being discovered, it took them a while, roughly 2 hours, to arrive at Wave. Anko, being bored, chose to take a nap because Naruto's fur was cozy and warm. Naruto snorted at her light snoring, but he kept scanning the area with his senses to make sure they wouldn't be ambushed while in the mist. Since they had been walking for nearly 2 hours, Kakashi, on the other hand, was amazed by Naruto's chakra capacity. No genin has a chance of succeeding because water walking requires a lot more chakra than tree walking does, and the deeper the water, the more chakra is required. As they moved slowly toward Wave, the one-eyed Junin also noticed Naruto's shape. Naruto appears to be using his wolf form only for fighting, based on the appearance of his massive muscles, razor-sharp claws, and fangs. The thought of what those things could do to anyone who mistreats the child made him gag. The new member of Team 7 was a topic of discussion for the other members as well. Given that new bloodlines are always welcome in Konoha and that Naruto's form possessed such power, Sai, who has his own mission with the team, just gave Naruto's form a close inspection with the intention of reporting it to Danzo later. Sakura, however, felt a mixture of terror and wonder. Seeing Naruto in his wolf form is undoubtedly impressive due to his massive build. Her fingers twitched to scratch all those furs, ears, and bushy tail with reckless abandon. Because wolves are known to be vicious, she was also afraid, but she quickly realized that, based on how he had introduced himself earlier and made them faint, this was the same Naruto that he had known in the academy. Sasuke was enviously glaring at the Golden Wolf standing next to them. Even though he already knew it, the blonde's strength was evident because they continued to spar while they were in the academy. In order to exact revenge on his clan, he needed to get stronger. He considered bugging the blonde to tell him about his ancestry and to teach him his abilities, but then he understood that Naruto's abilities and modifications were so ingrained in his DNA that he had no chance of ever discovering them. He sighed and returned to his contemplative, staring at nothing. Tazuna said something to the boatman when they reached the shore in Wave Country and then got off. Leading the way to his residence is Tazuna. Naruto didn't stop. He just followed Team 7 out of the water. Anko gave Naruto a curious glance, but before she could say anything, Naruto answered. I think it would be best if I stay in this form, sensei. My senses are at its peak and I can easily sense anyone coming our way. Besides, this form might be needed just in case Kakashi-sensei and Team 7 needs backup. Anko gave a nod and motioned for Kakashi to approach. She gave the Cyclops an explanation of what was going on and informed them that in the event of an ambush, she and Naruto would be hiding in the woods and would emerge only to be needed. Accepting the plan, Kakashi gave his team instructions to surround Tazuna in a defensive position before letting Team Chimera finish their own missions. Following Team 7 and the client at a distance so they could easily reach them in case something serious came up, Naruto and Anko split up as they left and raced to the woods to scout the area for ambushes and traps. Naruto was sprinting through the forest, searching for any suspicious activity that could indicate an ambush of their client Tazuna. He was lumbering around for a few minutes when he smelled something odd, blood and metal. He made an effort to track the scent, but it was difficult due to the mist and the water in the air. There were some footprints on the ground when he came to a dead end in a forest clearing. He disregarded the scent and went back to follow Anko's lingering scent on the trail in order to catch up with the rest of the team, knowing that someone was waiting for them in the mist. Mitarashi Anko felt furious. When she and Naruto parted ways, she was following an odd chakra trail that ended in the forest. The strange chakra source was nowhere to be found, so she circled the area in an attempt to see if she could follow the trail once more. With a sigh, she made the decision to rejoin the group in the hopes that Naruto would soon return, allowing them to reconvene. Following a small trail in the woods that Tazuna claimed would lead to his house on the opposite side of the island were Kakashi, Team 7, and Tazuna. Just as he was about to launch a kunai because he heard something in front of him, an enraged Anko leapt out of the foliage and unleashed a hail of curses that would have made a sailor blush. Kakashi eased up as he saw the well-known chakra signature of Anko. "Yo Anko, what got you so worked up?" Junin answered, obviously annoyed. "I was following a weird chakra trail in the woods but all I got is a dead end. I'm wet because of the mist and I ran out of dango so yes, I am defintely not in the mood. Just so you know, keep your guard up. It is quite possible that someone is checking us out from somewhere but I can't pinpoint their exact location." Junin, the one-eyed man, picked at his chin. "Where's Naruto? Isn't he supposed to be with you?" "I already came to that conclusion when you mentioned the trail you were following," the girl asked, scanning the area for the boy and noticing that he was missing while pursuing the snake Junin. Shaking her head, Anko joined the group encircling Tazuna. "Nope, he separated when we encountered two trails. He should be coming back to rendezvous with us." Sakura was perplexed and looked around at the surrounding foliage and mist, wondering how their fellow genin could track them with nearly no visibility. "How can he find us when we're all hidden under this mist?" Sakura asked. Anko said without showing any signs of concern, "Don't worry about my apprentice, Pinky. Naruto can easily follow our scent from where we started out. He should be along." With a shrug, Kakashi gestured for everyone to proceed along the path. As they strolled along the path, Sasuke hurled a kunai at a bush directly in front of them. Sai decided to investigate and discovered a white rabbit that was visibly trembling after nearly getting skewered by the weapon. As soon as Kakashi and Anko noticed the rabbit, they alerted the authorities. Kakashi heard a sound that sounded like a shuriken, only louder. He yelled and opened his eyes wide. "Everyone down, now." Without delay, Anko grabbed Tazuna and pulled him to the ground, with Kakashi and Team 7 trailing closely behind. A massive sword materialized from the fog in their wake, soared above them, narrowly missing them, and sculpted itself into a tree directly before them. A figure materialized, perched atop the sword's hilt and glaring down at the defensive group below. The man appeared robust and well-built, especially given the size of the sword he had just thrown at them. He wore no shirt, but there was a leather belt across his front, secured with a sheath behind him. The man had on loose-fitting camouflage pants with wrist and leg warmers. His slashed mist headband was tied languidly on his head, concealing his face behind bandages. The man in front of them, who was half-naked and muscular, exclaimed, "Ho ho! What is this?" Hatake Kakashi and Mitarashi Anko. It seems that the old man was able to get someone worth his salt to guard him. Glancing up from his opponent, Kakashi gave him a languid look. Trying to sound casual, he said, "Momochi Zabuza, demon of the mist. What brings you here in this dreary place?" But, given that the enemy had hired someone of Zabuza's caliber, he was secretly tensing up, bracing himself for a hard battle. Zabuza mocked Kakashi's informal tone of conversation with him. "Give me the old man Kakashi and none of you will get hurt." "Up your ass you eyebrowless freak. Why don't you be a good boy, get your sword, and go back to your kami-forsaken village," grumbled Anko. She gave Zabuza a strange glance. "Oh yeah, I forgot, you're a nuke nin now so no village for you." Zabuza's gaze quirked. He gave the genin an evil grin that made everyone in the clearing tense. "Shut up snake charmer. You don't know anything about me. So why don't you all just mosey back to the leaf and give me the old man?" He concluded the threat by filling the entire clearing with killer intent, which shook the genins and Tazuna. Or I'll turn your cute genins into tenderloins. Kakashi and Anko surrounded Team 7 and Tazuna in a defensive stance right away. Kakashi lifted up his headband to reveal his single Sharingan eye, and Anko pulled out 2 kunais, holding them in a reverse grip. When the nuke nin saw it, he smiled. He flipped through a lengthy series of seals, flared his chakra, and then released it, saying, My. I should be flattered, already bringing out the Sharingan for little old me. He. Let's see you use your famous eye for this Kakashi. Hidden Mist Technique. Kurigakur no Jutsu. The Konoha team's visibility range was effectively reduced to only a few feet as the mist surrounding them thickened. They watched Zabuza snicker and hunch down on his sword, then he was almost completely obscured from view by the mist. Everyone had trouble locating Zabuza because of the echoing sound of his voice. The genins were terrified for their lives as Zabuza's eerie voice reverberated throughout the clearing. Who should I kill first? I can see all of you. So many targets to choose from. Eeny, meeny, miny, mo. Who should be the first to go? The 2 Konoha junins were on high alert, making the most of their senses to ward off any potential ambush that might emerge from anywhere in the mist. But the genins were trembling in their boots and had no experience in the field. Sasuke was trembling from the overwhelming sense of murderous intent surrounding them. He was scanning all around him for any indications that the silent assassin was planning to attack them. He heard a slight movement behind him, so he spun around as fast as he could, using his desperation to power him through seals. Kaden. Grand Fireball. In anticipation of hearing the enemy burn and scream, the young Uchiha let out a massive fireball in the direction where he felt the movement. Instead, he heard only a faint chuckle. In the center of the group, a figure appeared out of nowhere with a kunai pointing at Sasuke's spine. With a kunai strapped to his spine, Zabuza, who was crouching behind Sasuke, remarked, "You're the first to go, little genin." Just as he was about to stab the boy, Kakashi used a kunai to stab him in the side. The one-eyed Junin said, "I don't think so, Zabuza. With this eye, I can see you easily." Laughing, the enemy he had stabbed took him off guard. The Zabuza that Kakashi stabbed turned to water and then fell to the ground, splashing their feet. "Really, Kakashi, you didn't think I'll go down that easily, did you?" the victim asked. Zabuza was seen brandishing his sword and bringing it down with a speed befitting his station as a shadow emerged from behind the Cyclops. To his surprise, the split Kakashi simply changed into water, just like the clone he had been using. He snarled. He was about to say, "You were really living up to your name, copycat Kakashi, to think you copied my water clone despite the mist," when Anko kicked him in the head, revealing it was another clone. Anko yelled, "Damn it! Another Kami be damned water clone." She was forced to leave the group by a kick to the ribs before she could regain consciousness. After successfully landing a kick on her ribs, Zabuza taunted, "He. I'm everywhere Snake Charmer, so don't be surprised now." When Kakashi noticed his fellow Junin lying on the ground, stunned by the blow, he hurried to attack Zabuza, but a second clone emerged from the mist and kicked him in the direction of the lake behind them. Kakashi let out a grunt due to the force of the blow and splashed into the water. Just as he was about to step outside, Zabuza's hand held him in place as the water suddenly gathered around him, encasing him in a sphere of water. Sweden. Water prison. Zabuza laughed at the catch he was on now. He raised his free arm in front of his chest in a ram seal and said, Looky, I caught a Kakashi." This caused a dozen water clones to appear on the lake's edge, prepared to attack the helpless group. He sent 2 water clones to attack the unconscious and disoriented Junin, their swords already aimed downward, saying, "Now that you're trapped, it's the Snake Charmer's turn." When Naruto heard the sound of combat, he sent chakra shooting through his legs to accelerate. He arrived just in time to witness the outline of 2 people, each brandishing a Zanbato and poised to cut her sensei. Without pausing, he let go of his chakra weights and shot forward in a blur, hitting both figures in the head and sending them flying into the air before transforming into water. He chose to aim at the ground in front of him and flip through a familiar set of hand seals in order to remove the mist. Futon. Grand Breakthrough. Taking a deep breath, Naruto collected as much chakra as he could in his lungs before releasing the technique, landing on the ground, and creating a shockwave of strong winds that pushed the mist back, eliminating it completely. His jaws dropped as the mist lifted, revealing a sight that sent shivers down the spine of the clearing. Kakashi was stuck in a water globe, Anko was on the ground, swaying from blows, and Tazuna was whining, surrounded by a trembling Team 7. Zabuza was taken aback when his bond with his clones broke, but he was even more taken aback when a powerful wind gust easily blew away his mist technique. A shiver ran down his spine and his gut wrenched at what he saw. A massive, well-built, bipedal, golden werewolf with razor-sharp teeth and claws that could easily tear him to pieces was standing in front of him, growling at him. Zabuza exclaimed in a frenzied tone, "What in the world is that?" When Kakashi saw Naruto in his wolf form, he exhaled with relief. With a very sweet voice, he answered Zabuza cheerfully. "Oh, the werewolf. Well, that is the snake charmer's apprentice, Konoha's Golden Wolf, which you conveniently knocked on the ground if I might add." He then turned to Naruto. He roared and smiled at the werewolf that was growling in front of an aware Anko, saying, "Yo Naruto. Why don't you introduce yourself to Zabuza here? It's only polite." To Kakashi's further alarm, Naruto heard him quite clearly and grinned fiercely at the Nuke Nin. He gathered chakra in his lung and throat, letting out a powerful howl so loud that people had to cover their ears. The howl was so strong that Zabuza had to cover his ears, unintentionally letting Kakashi escape his water prison. Kakashi quickly seized the opportunity to run towards the lakeshore and catch his breath. A gasping Kakashi remarked, "Nice of you to join us, Naruto. You definitely took your sweet time." He replied to Team 7's sensei, keeping the elusive Nuke Nin in his sights. When he felt Anko standing up behind him, he said, "I'm sorry, Kakashi-sensei. I have to backtrack to find Anko-sensei's scent so I can track you guys down. I got lucky getting here in time. Are you okay, Anko-sensei?" Anko dismissed it with a shake of her head. She remarked cynically, "Took your time, Gaki. I hope I didn't interrupt your sightseeing." Rolling his eyes, Naruto assessed the situation. The real Zabuza was still out in the lake, staring at Naruto in terror, but there were still about a dozen Zabuza clones encircling them. Naruto, flexing his claws and itching for a fight, said, "Anko-sensei. Can you and Kakashi-sensei take care of the real Zabuza while I handle the clones?" Anko turned to face the genuine Zabuza and the clones across the lake. He looked at Kakashi, then at Naruto. She gave Naruto a menacing smile after giving it some thought. She turned to look at Kakashi and said, "Don't take too long to play with them, Gaki. Oi Cyclops, get your butt in gear. We have a demon to massacre." With a nod, Kakashi sent the three racing in the direction of their individual opponents. Naruto's combat. Naruto inhaled deeply before lunging at the group of Zabuza clones in front of him and flipping through hand seals. Kaden. Grand Fireball. The clones jumped away to escape the blast as a fireball 3 times the size of Sasuke's shot through the air. But when it exploded on the ground, the shockwave it produced propelled them much farther. When Naruto realized that his plan to split them up had worked, he quickly ran to the closest one and used a thrust of his claws to impale it, restoring it to its original form. He ducked just in time to avoid one of the clones' decapitating swings, and a sword deflected his powerful kick in retaliation. But the kick was so strong that it launched the clone into a tree, where the force of the blow caused it to revert to water. Naruto noticed that there were still 12 clones when he turned to look around. In an attempt to end the battle quickly, he produced 12 shadow clones that raced toward the Zabuza clones. Naruto, on the other hand, leapt back and waited for his clones to finish their assigned tasks before launching his own attack. Naruto's clones managed to herd them together after a few minutes of evading and misdirected attacks. When Naruto saw his opportunity, he channeled as much chakra as he could towards the technique, jumped high into the air, and flipped through the hand seal. Kaden. Grand Fireball. With a breath, Naruto released a fireball that was twice as big as the last one, aiming it at the group of water clones beneath him. Water evaporated from the Zabuza clones' strength as they were burned. Before dispelling his clones, Naruto made a small crater on the ground upon landing. He took a moment to catch his breath as the overpowered wind technique and fireballs had consumed 25% of his chakra reserves. He changed back to his human form, pulled his Zanbato off his back, and ran to the clearing, positioning himself between Team 7 and the real Zabuza in case Zabuza chose to use his clones or himself to attack them. Anko and Kakashi's fight. When Zabuza swung his sword in a horizontal slash, Anko and Kakashi raced across the water toward him, cutting both Konoha Junin in half and forcing them to duck out of the way. In an attempt to injure the Nuke Nin, Anko flipped through the air and threw a flurry of shurikens, but Zabuza's massive Zanbato easily swatted those away. Never one to stand still, Kakashi pulled out a kunai and gave it some extra chakra before launching himself into a furious swordfight with Zabuza. However, Zabuza's enormous sword length prevented him from dealing a serious blow. Using both attacking thrusts to skewer him even at a distance and defensive swipes to keep him at bay, the Nuke Nin was handling it with ease. As he repelled Kakashi's blows, Zabuza saw Anko behind him and made the decision to break the pincer maneuver. He directed a great deal of chakra into his sword, making it glow blue. He then slashed the water in front of him, causing it to erupt in a powerful shockwave that flung both of his assailants away. Regrouping, Anko and Kakashi took up a defensive stance a short distance from the Nuke Nin. To ensure that the distance works in his favor, the Demon of the Mist leapt back a few feet. He watched as a large golden werewolf easily decimated his clones. With a frantic voice, Zabuza demanded, "What in the world is that thing?" Anko noticed the Demon of the Mist sphere when her apprentice flashed a menacing smile. She pointed at a sizable fireball engulfing the group of clones and said, "That, my dear Zabuza, is my apprentice. Don't you just love those sharp claws and fangs of his? Oh, look at that, he just barbecued your clones." The fireball was surrounded by 12 large golden werewolves. She grinned even more at the sight. Zabuza looked in Anko's direction, and sure enough, she was correct. Another werewolf in the air above them unleashed a massive fireball that engulfed all of his clones. He chose to end the fight before anything more happened that could endanger his life, shivering at the sight. He maneuvered through a sequence of hand seals, preparing his strongest move. Glancing up, he saw that Kakashi was creating the same seals that he was. Holding on to the last seal and gathering as much chakra as he could, Zabuza yelled, "Damn you Kakashi, don't tell me you're also copying me now." It was obvious that he was annoyed by what Kakashi was doing. He said, "I'm not copying you. I'm looking into the future," in a mysterious, eerie voice that caused everyone to start sweating. Zabuza exclaimed, "Shut up. Take this Kakashi, Sweden. Water Dragon." Not to be outdone, Kakashi let out a shout at the same moment. Sweden. Water Dragon. The two shinobis were suddenly flanked by two enormous water dragons who launched airborne attacks on each other. Water was thrown everywhere by the shockwave produced by the collision's force. Thinking he had Kakashi beat, Zabuza let down his guard a little and turned to walk away when Anko, who was furious with him, delivered a powerful chakra-enhanced punch to his face, propelling him across the water and towards the shore, where he struck a tree with a sickening crunch. When Anko punched Zabuza toward the lakeshore, Naruto saw her plan and quickly ran to the fallen Nuke Nin. However, before Zabuza could strike his last blow, a masked shinobi appeared next to him, grabbed him, and then vanished into an ice mirror that later broke apart. With a sigh, Naruto peered around. There were several messes in the clearing. A small crater where he used his wind technique, puddles of water from Kakashi and Zabuza Water Dragon, a blackened crater where his overpowered fireball struck Zabuza's water clones, and a few scattered pebbles and rocks from the wind shockwave. Sitting on the ground, he observed Team 7 still encircling Tazuna. They were all breathing heavily, relieved that their sensei had defeated Zabuza and that another shinobi had taken him away. Remembering how the enigmatic person had taken Zabuza away from them using an ice mirror, Naruto scowled. He doesn't know why, but all he can learn from that brief encounter is that the shinobi was roughly their age and smelled strongly of snow. He got up and moved in the direction of Anko and Kakashi, who was lying on the ground and gasping for air. Naruto determined that they had chakra exhaustion based only on their panting and fatigue, as he was unable to see any visible wounds. While Anko appears to be fine, albeit a little tired, Kakashi is a completely different story. It appears that he will be out like a light in no time. He wasted no time in approaching Kakashi's prone form and producing one of his green scrolls. He took a seat next to the unconscious Junin and opened a tiny bottle that held chakra tablets. Naruto pulled a pill out of the bottle and held it to Kakashi's mouth, waiting for him to open it, of course, after taking off his mask first. "Kakashi-sensei, I got some chakra pills here to help." When Anko realized that Kakashi was not going to open his mouth, he quickly pounded a fist into the Cyclops' stomach, causing him to exhale completely. She reached for the mask right away and took it off. Taking advantage of the situation, Naruto gave him the pill while he had his mouth open. After observing Kakashi struggling for a while, he swallowed the tablet and noticed that his shivering had lessened. With enough strength to move his hands, he lifted the Konoha headband that covered his Sharingan, thereby halting the continual chakra drain caused by the light exposure of the eye. He then smiled at Naruto while replacing the mask. "Thank you, Naruto. It was fortunate that you had some medical supplies with you," expressed gratitude from Kakashi. The little bit of chakra that was flowing back into his veins and replenishing his system was making him feel a little better. If nothing else, at least he won't have to endure days in a medical coma as his body attempts to replenish its chakra. Additionally, Kakashi refrained from asking Naruto for another pill, a very poor decision. To an ignorant buffoon of a shinobi, another chakra pill was great, but if you take 2 in a single hour, you are committing suicide. If you do not die in the attempt, you will suffer from damaged chakra coils from the sudden surge of energy. When he was thanked, Naruto nodded. He said, pulling out another pill, "No problem, Kakashi-sensei. I always bring medical supplies on missions. I got spares this time since we have more people on in this mission compared to just me and Anko-sensei." Junin skillfully caught it in a practiced maneuver as if they were doing this for years, popping it into her mouth and sighing with relief when some of her chakra was restored. Anko smiled at the happy blonde and said, "Good going, Gaki. I taught you well." However, she instantly scowled when she recalled something from the fight. What happened to Zabuza? After resealing the bottle, Naruto pocketed the scroll. He explained, glancing at his sensei. "After I defeated the clones, I took up a defensive position between the battle and the client. I saw you punch Zabuza towards the shore, then he hit the tree, effectively knocking him out. I took advantage of the situation to take him into custody for interrogation, but someone just appeared out of nowhere and grabbed Zabuza before disappearing in a mirror of ice." Kakashi and Anko were drawn to the last section. Mirror of ice sounds like a specialized shunshin or a jutsu. Ice is a sub-element variety, mostly dealing with excellent control over wind and water chakra, and only those with a bloodline can do that. As far as I'm concerned, those who carry the bloodline have been wiped out during the bloodline massacre in Mist a few years back. Kakashi spoke with a gloomy voice. It will get more complicated if Zabuza has an ice user in his corner, particularly if the ice user was the Nuke Nin's supporter. Anko's face was marred by a frown as she nodded. "I think the weird chakra trail I found in the woods belonged to the ice user. It's the only explanation why the trail disappeared in the woods. He or she must have used that technique to switch to another location." They decided to put the conversation on hold for the time being in order to focus on more urgent matters, so they regrouped around Tazuna and made a makeshift camp where they rested for a few hours before going to the client's house. They were fortunate that nobody sustained any serious injuries, well, aside from Kakashi, who experienced extreme chakra exhaustion but is now gradually getting better because of Naruto's prompt intervention. Team 7's relative quiet during their recuperation was mostly a result of the fierce combat they barely made it through. All 3 genin realized how close to death they were without their Junin senseis and Naruto when the adrenaline subsided and all hostilities ended. The 3 of them were thinking hard about the fight. Sasuke was scolding himself for losing his composure while Zabuza's mist technique was working. Not counting their run-in with the Demon Brothers back in Fire Country, this was his first real battle, but he knew his brother was much more experienced, stronger, and had more power than he did. So he shouldn't have freaked out. He gritted his teeth in frustration and rage at the thought of him freezing at a smaller-scale battle. He scowled once more as he turned to face Naruto, who was merrily conversing with his Junin sensei. How on earth did the blonde get so strong so quickly? Naruto was clearly hiding his true abilities from everyone, but he already knew from their spars when they were still in the academy that he was stronger than them. The blonde patiently gave him an explanation of how he gained his strength, experience, and rapid growth each time he confronted Naruto about his strength. It was strange that he revealed all of it to him because most people with abilities opted to keep it a secret as part of their trump card. Secrets and deceit were, after all, a shinobi's greatest weapon. After the team placement a month ago, the blonde appeared to have grown stronger. It was intolerable. Even though he trained non-stop until he was exhausted, it appears that the blonde was far ahead of him. His combat demeanor, the respect he received from Junin sensei, and other actions speak volumes about his abilities. When he realized he was still weak, he clenched his fist and nearly smashed the ground with it. Power was what he needed. He was untrained, and he will stop at nothing to accomplish his objective. His brother's final words rang in his ears as he reverted to his brooding. I'm not sure if Sakura saw Sasuke clench his fist out of frustration or anger. She has been exposed to the actual experience of being a shinobi ever since she turned genin. She was made aware of the harsh reality when her team encountered the Demon Brothers, even though the D-rank missions were, to put it mildly, offensive. She initially enrolled in the academy because shinobis were revered. The fact that there was only one Uchiha in their year was a bonus, so she made it her mission to ensure that she graduated and joined his team. If her grades were any guide, she was intelligent, but all of that intelligence vanished from her the moment she saw the demon brothers slicing their sensei to pieces. Ultimately, her teammates and sensei must protect her as well as the client. The idea made her frown. Although she was a genin, she was ultimately falling short of expectations. She resolved to improve, but she wasn't sure where to begin. She couldn't help but be perplexed by the blonde when she glanced at Naruto. The mustached teenager was a joker, a troublemaker, and a complete failure in terms of practical and academic standing when they first arrived at the academy. But he turned into a serious and industrious student, and she saw that he loved to train himself until he was exhausted. She understood that, unlike Sasuke, who came from the most prominent clan in Konoha, Naruto's changes were due to his bloodline rather than his talent or brilliance. That moment, she concluded that Naruto was fortunate to have a bloodline and nothing more. It was terrible that she was unaware that the Uchiha she was crushing on also had a well-known bloodline. Conversely, Sai was collecting his thoughts as he watched the man Kakashi dubbed the Golden Wolf of Konoha. He would never be able to dispute that Naruto's prompt arrival and the strength of his bloodline were the reasons they were spared. Even Zabuza's root training could not have prepared him for the battle they survived or his murderous intent. He scowled at the thought that they had survived because of the Golden Wolf. He had never heard of a bloodline that could initiate a physical metamorphosis into something more primal and potent. He was intrigued by it and was certain his master would be too. He started participating in Danzo's root program when he was a young child, educated and trained to become a devoted shinobi. He was stripped of his worthless feelings, kept under strict control, and forgotten by the rigorous training and conditioning he was made to endure. His allegiance returned to Konoha a few years ago after the Hokage wisely removed root from his master's possession after learning about it. It's true that they have vowed to obey Danzo's and the Hokage's commands. But the one-eyed warhawk has always been the true leader in his eyes. Deep down, he knew that he had to tell Danzo about this as soon as possible. When he had some free time away from his team, he needed to write a message. The trio of genins were deep in thought when their purple-haired leader let out a loud cry. "All right, Gakis, I think we have rested enough, so we are now going to Tezuna's house and regroup." She turned to Tezuna. "Old man, how far is your house from here?" "It's about a 1-hour walk that way," Tezuna replied, gesturing east. Anko gave a nod. She turned to face Naruto, who was waiting for orders while standing alertly alongside Team 7. Kakashi was about to object when Anko beat him to it, saying, "Okay Team 7, I want you to take a defensive formation around Tezuna. Naruto, I want you to carry Cyclops since he is still out of it." She finished with extra venom, threatening to inflict unimaginable agony if he refused. "Shut up Kakashi, we all know that you can't stand up right now, much less walk, so be a good boy and let my apprentice carry you." "Got it," she said. He nodded, forced in his helplessness to agree. When Naruto pulled him off the cozy ground and placed him in a fireman's carry, he yelled in shock. Even though a genin is a unique situation, Kakashi was not exactly thrilled about being handled roughly and exclaimed, "Hey! Careful, injured person here." With a simple eye roll, Naruto made the decision to trick the one-eyed Junin. He threw Kakashi skyward, causing him to scream in surprise, which pleased him much, and he instantly changed into a wolf. With a deft jaw move, he expertly grabbed Kakashi's vest by the shoulder and flipped him onto his back. Kakashi was slathered in fur by Naruto. Luckily, his face mask prevented him from actually tasting said fur. The idea made him shudder. He turned to see Naruto grinning fiercely in his face as he stared back at him. He glared at him, clearly annoyed. "I hate you," was all the rage and irritation Kakashi could muster in his weak state. All he received was a howl and a series of yips, growls, and small howls mixed with a wolfish laugh. Even though Kakashi wasn't sure about it, he had to admit that lying on Naruto's back was pretty cozy, especially since Naruto's body heat kept him warm even in the often chilly mist of Wave Country. In fact, he dozed off, so he couldn't really complain too much, but he wouldn't acknowledge it, not even in the face of discomfort. In less than an hour, Team Chimera and Team 7 reached Tezuna's residence. 10 minutes before they arrived at the client's house, Naruto transformed back into his human form because Kakashi had already recovered enough to walk and his chakra levels had nearly returned to normal following a quick nap and the chakra pill Naruto had given him. A stunning, dark-haired woman answered Tezuna's knock, grinning reassuringly and embracing him tightly right away. With a voice full of relief, the woman said, "Chu-san. You're back." As soon as she saw the entourage over her father's shoulder, she broke the hug and turned to face them. "Hello. Who might you be?" The elderly man with the straw hat smiled. "Dear Tazuna, I'm surrounded by super ninjas who can handle anything," he gushed in a loud voice. "These are the powerful shinobis that promised to protect us from Gato while I finish the bridge. They saved me from being ambushed by the people that the tyrant hired. Even though they had just returned from a battle that could have killed them, this caused the group to perspire during the informal introduction." Kakashi moved to the front and gave a group introduction. "My name is Hitaki Kakashi and this is my team, Sasuke, Sakura, and Sai. My partner, Mitarashi Anko and her apprentice, Uzumaki Naruto. We are all from Konoha that accepted the mission from your old man." It was getting close to nighttime, so after a brief greeting, Tsunami led everyone into the living room and instructed them to settle in while she went to the kitchen to prepare dinner. Kakashi wasted no time in calling a meeting to go over their itinerary for their visit. "Alright everyone, Tazuna's house will be our base operation from now on. According to the new directives from Hokage-sama, Team 7 will continue to protect Tazuna while he is building the bridge. Team Chimera, on the other hand, will be investigating Gato and his band of mercenary and find a way to bring them down while acting as our backup if things get dicey. It is quite possible that our mission will coincide since Gato's target is our client, so a confrontation is inevitable," stated Kakashi. Anko continued, stressing the gravity of the situation by saying, "Not to mention that Zabuza and the unknown shinobi are still out there, so we can be sure that they will be back." When the genin learned that Zabuza was still alive, they became a little tense because they had assumed Anko had killed him and then the mysterious shinobi had taken him off to somewhere unknown before Naruto could reach him. Sakura said, almost sounding hysterical, "But, you guys defeated Zabuza. We saw Anko-sensei kill him with a single punch." Unable to accept that the person who had come dangerously close to killing them was still alive. Anko shot her a bitter glance. This revelation shocked Team 7, though only the pink-haired girl acknowledged it. "He is not dead, Pinky." Naruto was about to finish him off, but he was spirited away by an unknown, possibly his apprentice or a partner. "So no, Zabuza is still alive and we all know that he will be back with a vengeance." Anko looked at her trainee. "Naruto, what was the state of Zabuza before he was carted off, since you were near him at that time?" He winced a little as he recalled the pain he had endured during one of their spars. "Zabuza was unconscious when you knocked him towards that tree. From the angle of his arm, I say that you dislocated a shoulder and broke a bone somewhere, not to mention that you might have broken his jaw or something." He collected himself and carried on. After explaining how Zabuza appeared before he was carted off, Naruto said, "Considering how you guys were going at it and from the state of Kakashi-sensei, he should be suffering from chakra exhaustion as well." After Naruto's explanation, Anko and Kakashi nodded. "Thank you, Naruto. This will give us enough time to prepare. I would say that we have around 3 to 5 days tops before Zabuza gets back on his feet if he has access to a skilled medic. If we are lucky, we have a week. So from that grace period, Team 7 will be training in the forest outside until Zabuza returns. One of us will keep Tazuna company while he works on the bridge. We will come up with a schedule later for that depending on the result of the exercise I will be teaching you." Kakashi thought as his teammates nodded. He looked over at Anko. "What's your plan, Anko?" Junin, with her purple hair, scratched her chin as she tried to think of a strategy. "Me and Naruto have our own mission to take care of, and you're right that Tazuna is a rally point for Gato's group since he is a target. We will provide backup only when needed. My plan involves Naruto watching Tazuna so you can concentrate on training your Gakis, and if possible, help in finishing up the bridge to get the work done faster. I will scout the island for intel on Gato and find out where his base of operation is and find a way to bring him down. Considering that he has his own interest in Wave, I would say that he is just in the vicinity but well hidden. Your team will concentrate on training to get their skills up before the battle. What do you think, Kakashi?" Kakashi gave a nod. Anko's plan would work perfectly with the training regimen he was envisioning for his group. "It's a sound plan. I suggest we all rest up after we get something to eat." At this moment, Tsunami entered the room and offered them a steaming cup of tea, which they all accepted with gratitude. "I didn't expect a lot of you to come, so we only have 2 rooms available. I apologize. I guess you guys would have to squeeze yourself in by groups." Tsunami spoke with a tone of apology. Anko dismissively waved the worry, not really caring about accommodations since she prefers to stay outside when on missions. The snake Junin said, "Give the room to Kakashi and Team 7. Me and Naruto will be camping out in the forest since we will be scouting the area. Naruto noticed Tsunami's nervous expressions after Anko's statement. It's fine, Tsunami-san. We won't be spending a lot of time in the house anyway since we will be combing the island for Gato. Besides, having only one team visible to everyone is a tactical advantage for us, especially if Gato's spying on the house right now. Me and Anko-sensei can protect you guys from the shadows while we do our investigation, and Kakashi-sensei and his team provide visible protection to draw the attention away from us. Everyone wins and all our sides covered, stated Naruto. The Junins gave their nod of approval to his explanation. Anko proudly smiled at Naruto's justification. Although not as skilled as the Nara strategist, her apprentice is proving to be a capable tactician when needed. Tsunami nodded, directing everyone to follow her into the kitchen to have a snack before turning in for the evening. Following a filling meal, Anko and Naruto headed into the forest, where, for extra security, they made camp near a spot where they could see both the house and the path leading to it. Unsealing the tents and sleeping bags he had brought with him, Naruto set out clones to search the nearby forest for possible spies, map out the area, and keep an eye out for any threats. Anko helped set up their makeshift camp, helping to arrange the tents and make it functional, but he ultimately decided to head home early so he could be fresh for tomorrow's strategy. The following morning, Naruto felt refreshed and well rested. He found that sleeping outside was very comfortable for some reason. He briefly considered the possibility that it was because of his wolf instincts, which saw forests as their natural home. He got their memories right away by dispelling the clones he had left outside last night to conduct reconnaissance and protect the client's house and camp. Fortunately, nothing major occurred, save for an occasional forest animal that required the attention of a clone. He got out of his tent determined to prepare breakfast. Anko was assigned to prepare meals since his training back in Konoha because he wasn't a morning person. Anko was simply too erratic in the mornings. He chose to start the day with a hot meal rather than cold rations. He made a clone, giving it instructions to build a fire and get the cooking supplies ready while he goes in search of their food. Knowing that Anko wasn't a morning person, he left her sleeping in her tent. Although he was resilient, he believed that his ancestry would protect him from an extremely irritable Anko in the morning. Naruto chose to assist Tsunami in spite of her offer to cook for the group by obtaining game meat and possibly some herbs. Even if they had to steal from their host's hospital, his conscience wouldn't allow it given Wave Country's current financial and economic situation. Besides, having their host feed them for a week or two would drag them in the muck, since the island's economy was already in the ground. Running into the forest, he began searching for enough game to last them the entire day. An hour later, he returned to camp bearing the spoils of the hunt in the arms of a clone. While his clone was transporting a dozen fish from a river located deep within the forest, he managed to fall in love. He was fortunate to come across schools of them while hunting, and he promptly tasked a clone with capturing some. He got to work right away cleaning up the catch and getting it ready to cook. Cleaning up the fish and skinning the deer didn't take him long. If they ration it to last, the amount of meat he brought back from a successful hunt should be sufficient to last them for 2 or 3 days. If necessary, he could hunt some more in the coming days. Since Tsunami was in charge of the kitchen, he gave the clone the task of cooking some of the fish and deer meat while he gathered the remainder to deliver to her. He turned around and knocked on the door of the kitchen at the back of the house after hearing a disturbance there. After a moment, the door opened a little, and Tsunami peered out with a worried expression on her face. When she recognized it was Naruto, she exhaled with relief. Tsunami said, "Good morning, Uzumaki-san. You're up early," and fully opened the door to let Naruto inside. Naruto smiled and gave her a quick nod before entering the home. He lifted his package containing fish and deer meat and said, "Good morning, Tsunami-san. Please call me Naruto. I'm not big fan of honorifics." Tsunami was taken aback. He placed the food on the table and turned to see a shocked but appreciative Tsunami. "I woke up early this morning and decided to hunt. I got lucky that the forest behind your property is full of wildlife and there was a well-stocked river as well. I decided to give you the rest since I have a lot of leftover after making our own breakfast." She started to say, "Thank you, Naruto. You didn't have to," but Naruto interrupted her with a smile and a raised hand. "I didn't have to, but I wanted to. I know that Wave is having a crisis right now and money is hard to come by, so please let me do this at least to keep your expenses at a minimum while we do our mission. So please, accept this gift," explained Naruto and presented her with one of his genuine grins. Tsunami nodded appreciatively to the blonde shinobi but said nothing. After taking the package and setting it on the counter to be cooked later, she made her guest some tea. After chatting for a while over tea, Kakashi came down and grinned at them both, clearly showing off his mask. He sat down in one of the chairs and greeted them both. Kakashi said, "Good morning, Tsunami-san, Naruto." Tsunami nodded and returned to the counter to get the newcomer another pot of tea because the one on the table was getting cold. Naruto, sipping his tea calmly, asked, "Good morning, Kakashi-sensei. Where's the rest of your team?" Although he wasn't picky and didn't want to force himself, he usually preferred coffee in the morning. He made a note to add coffee to his basic shinobi supplies in case it becomes necessary in the future. She placed a steaming mug of tea in front of Tsunami, and Kakashi nodded. After apologizing, she headed for the kitchen counter to get ready the ingredients for breakfast. He looked up at Naruto. "They're still asleep. I'm giving them some time off to sleep in since they will need the energy for training later." Nodding, the blonde werewolf said. Curious, Naruto asked, "What training do you have in mind for Team 7? His own Junin sensei from Anko was unique due to his lineage and skills, so he was curious about other senseis' training regimens. Kakashi paused to consider his response. "I plan on teaching them tree walking since I haven't gotten them started on any chakra control exercise since I was focused on their teamwork," Kakashi said with a firm voice. Since his genins are terrible at working as a team and they need to develop proper teamwork skills before they can take missions outside of the village, he decided against teaching them the exercise he will be teaching them today earlier than he had originally planned to. Given that chakra control is regarded as a fundamental ability that recently graduated genin should possess, Naruto was taken aback to learn that Kakashi would only be teaching his team tree walking at this point. He didn't feel the need to express his opinions because, after all, who was he to judge? Kakashi said, "Anyway, Naruto, what are your plans for today?" As he sipped his tea again and glanced over the kitchen's back door in case something unexpected happened. "I woke up early since me and Anko sensei retired early last night after posting some shadow clone sentries around the perimeter. I just got back from hunting actually. It was a good haul. Got a large buck and a dozen fish. I already started with breakfast since Anko sensei is usually grumpy in the morning if there's no food around." He laughed. "I gave the rest to Tsunami. It should be enough for 2 days, then I'll hunt again to restock." "Why did you hunt for food? Tsunami told us last night that she'll be providing our food supplies while we're here. Usually the client takes care of those things during missions." Kakashi was perplexed. Naruto's countenance darkened. "I know, but I could just leave it to them since they are already having problems because of Gato. You saw Wave when we went through the town yesterday and everyone was in poor condition. Heck, kids were begging for food while we were walking past them. I know that hiring us is already straining Tezuna's budget, so I just want to help them out," he replied with a smirk. Nodding, the one-eyed Junin patted the blonde on the back. With a voice full of approval, Kakashi said, "You did good, Naruto. Not many shinobis would think of a client's welfare during mission unless their mission tells them to." Naruto gave him a smile for this. After exchanging a few stories over tea, he was informed by one of his clones that Anko had woken up and the food was ready. After leaving, Naruto returned to their camp to find Anko chowing down on a freshly cooked fish. Anko grinned at Naruto as he entered the camp. Anko said, "Good morning, Gaki. I see that you hunted and made food for us. Where did the rest of the meat go?" Upon observing that Naruto had only prepared a haunch that resembled a deer and had failed to reveal the whereabouts of the remaining meat in their temporary camp. With a shrug and a small smile, Naruto took a seat across from the fire and cut himself a piece of warm meat that had been grilled over the wood. He bit into it and chewed, muttering to himself that his clone had done a good job of flavoring the meat with herbs. To later search the area for more herbs, he made the decision to create a clone. After swallowing, he turned to face his sensei. "I didn't want to impose too much on our client Anko sensei." He sighed. "I noticed the town yesterday and it wasn't in very good condition. If the people are suffering under Gato, then Tezuna's family aren't really that far off the mark, so I decided to hunt for our food starting today and give them a portion so they won't have to spend much for our upkeep." Anko gave her student a nod for being considerate, and they continued eating in silence until Junin informed him of her plans for the day. "Okay, Gaki. We will leave Team 7 with Kakashi since they will be training for the day. We are going to scout the island first to find Gato, and if possible, find out where Zabuza is located. We need information before we can plan our next move. You will summon some wolves and I will do the same with my snakes." Tell them to scout the island, leave no stone untouched, and get as much information as you can. You will take Tazuna to the bridge and guard him. He said that it would take a week to finish, so I want you to lend him your clones to get it done faster. The earlier it's done, the more leverage we have on the mission," explained Anko as he cut the spit. Naruto chewed, his face wearing a contemplative frown. Not knowing anything about building, Naruto asked, "How many clones should I make, Anko-sensei?" Anko gave a shrug, her apprentice nodded, and they both fell silent once more as they focused on their food. "I don't know. Ask Tazuna Gaki, since construction isn't my forte. We will start our mission when Tazuna leaves for the bridge." "Understood," she said. 4 years have passed since the Sandaime regained total authority over Konoha, and a lot has happened behind everyone's backs. Ultimately, if you want something done correctly, keep it a secret from everyone. In the long run, it's less headachy and far safer that way. Sarutobi Hiruzen, the Sandaime Hokage, sat in his chair with his favorite pipe and pondered the numerous changes that had been made to the leaf over the previous 4 years while Team Chimera was outside the village on their support mission with Team 7. His blood began to boil when Anko and Ibiki took a great deal of information about the village and exposed the traitors in the civilian council. First, when they squealed everything under Anko and Ibiki's expert care, he discovered that the former council members were selling information to the larger villages, namely Iwa and Kumo, for money, and the amount was fairly substantial. Despite the failed abduction of Hyuga Hinata a few years ago, Kumo was once again showing a keen interest in Konoha. They bought off some members of the civilian council to provide information about the clan that used Byakugan, which would likely lead to a more audacious kidnapping in the future to get the clan's valuable eyes. Iwa, on the other hand, was much more detrimental to the leaf and needed different information from the avaricious council. He was perplexed as to why the number of genin casualties was rising over time, and it appeared that Iwa was responsible. They have employed a covert strategy to undermine the leaf by eliminating its potential soldiers, ensuring that they do not become strong, and increasing Konoha's combat capacity. Naruto's inheritance from his parents is the most serious of their numerous transgressions. They have effectively deprived the blonde of his legitimate claim to his mother and father's possessions without their knowledge. Since the will makes it very clear that Naruto must be at least 18 years old or chunin in rank in order to be eligible for it, he refrained from giving it to the boy right away. Without his knowledge, millions of ryo from the Namikaze account were gradually being spent to who knows where. It was nearly impossible to receive compensation because there were no paper trails. But they were able to come up with a figure to work with because of Anko and Ibiki's abilities. With great pleasure, the Sandaime depleted their funds and returned them to the Namikaze Trust. It was less than its initial value because, even if all of the thieves' remaining assets were sold, they would still be unable to repay the majority of the money that was stolen. He wasn't too worried about the money, though, because Naruto was working extremely hard in Soji's shop and making a good living for himself. However, some positive developments emerged from the fiasco. The bright spot among the ominous clouds, as it were. The village was now fully secured, all thanks to Jiraiya. They were able to establish a barrier team concealed beneath the Hokage Tower's foundations because of the Yondaime's notes, which he entrusted to the pervert. There are now detection seals strewn throughout the village and its environs, transmitting data to the barrier team for documentation and dissertation. Even though the designs were straightforward, the village benefited greatly from their wide-ranging effects. He vaguely recalled discussing it with Minato, but the project was either halted or postponed due to the Kyuubi attack. It's a good thing Minato had everything down on paper before they had to start over. Millions of ryo and 2 years were needed to finish, but the outcome was well worth it. The walls encircling Konoha were the first component of the project. These days, it is covered in a maze of interconnected seals that are kept active around the clock by ambient chakra and natural energy, both of which are abundant in and out of the village. The barrier encircles Konoha in a spherical shape from above and below, using the walls as a border. In addition to having detection skills so strong that not even an ant could evade it, it can be strengthened to withstand Nibis, the two-tailed cat Amari, menacing ball, and sustain solidity for up to a month without the need for human chakra reinforcement. Aside from this defense, the shrewd Nara clan head's strategy made the patrol duty around the village impenetrable. Konoha was always completely safe thanks to the Inuzuka, Aburame, and Hyuga clans' detection and tracking skills. Even though they were dressed as civilians, they managed to apprehend 12 shinobis in the first month alone. Rehabilitating the academy was going smoothly. The candidates are receiving a quality education because of Kaharu and Homura. Both mental and physical skills are appropriately introduced, and instructors are carefully vetted to make sure they possess the qualifications needed to instruct students. Though Mizuki was already well known in the academy before he implemented the change, so it's likely that his stellar record caused him to go unnoticed during the screening process, Sarutobi scowled when he thought back to Mizuki's betrayal. But he changed that by giving Kaharu and Homura orders to begin an inquiry into every instructor, regardless of when they began. Tsunade's hospital is progressing quite nicely, though not quickly enough for him. It took years to train medic nins from the beginning, and during most of that time the hospital was understaffed until enough experienced physicians and nurses were assigned. Its credo, the Hippocratic Oath and Trust, was upheld. However, performance and personality tests were administered sporadically to ensure that each employee was carrying out their duties effectively. Additionally, the hospital was well funded, much to Tsunade's satisfaction, and its departments are producing excellent research and applications in a variety of medical fields that will ultimately greatly benefit Konoha thanks to the money they were able to reclaim from the former civilian council. With some leftovers to be directed to other programs, Sarutobi helped Tsunade out without having to use the village coffers, which made him smile. Over the previous 4 years, the village's Jiraiya spy network has also improved. Because he already had people in strategic locations to keep him informed about the comings and goings in Konoha, he didn't need to keep a watch on everything and give his toad summons much-needed rest. The pervert only used summons when he had to conduct extensive research on important reports that were brought to his attention. The village is currently regarded as a nightmare for spies and infiltrators. It would only take a few days for them to be shipped out, even if they were successful in getting in, not after receiving a session from Anko and Ibiki, of course. Speaking of tables, to his delight, the pervert managed to establish a base of operations next to the Konoha hot springs. Despite his new duties in the Leaf, it appears that the Toad Sage was still conducting research. He even succeeded in keeping it so secret that Tsunade was unaware of it. If Sarutobi had known where the Toad Sage had established his base, she would have known that Jiraiya's preparations had been well worth it. But his expression darkened when he saw the Jiraiya report from earlier that was strewn all over his table. This calls for the council's undivided attention, which is one of the reasons he called for their meeting an hour ago. Raising himself from his chair, he gathered the necessary documents and left the office, his face a permanent frown. The council chamber's large doors opened, and the Sandaime Hokage entered. The new council of Konoha immediately stopped making any noise. Blue chakra instantly covered the room's walls, ceiling, and floor as soon as someone crossed the threshold, signaling that Jiraiya's privacy seal had been activated, ensuring that whatever was discussed inside would remain inside. Without delay, the Sandaime took his seat in front of the council and declared the meeting to be open. The Hokage gave everyone a clear view of his eyes and said, "Thank you all for answering my summons. Some news has come to my notice that is considered an emergency, thus your presence in this chamber. But before we go into that, I need the monthly report from everyone." Not everyone missed the serious look on his face. The report was opened by Nara Shikaku, the head of the Nara clan, and then it was read by the other departments. News from the defense team. No new infiltration for this month, and patrol are being changed every week with new patterns to make sure that it cannot be compromised. I have implemented a triad shift of duties to make sure that our manpower is not taxed just in case forces are needed elsewhere. There are a total of 34 teams patrolling the surrounding area, consisting of a 3-man team of Aburame, Hyuga, and Inuzuka, all Chunin and Junin rank, to maximize detection capabilities. That is all for now. Shikaku finished with a lazy drawl. On the barrier team, nothing new to report except that all detection and protection seals are working at maximum efficiency. No recharging is needed since the powering seals that Yondaime-sama introduced into the design are working flawlessly. The barrier expansion project underway. Project is currently at 20% completion and would be finished in 2 months' time with the current speed. Inoichi stated. After hearing Inoichi's report, Saruto scowled. Although it was moving too slowly, there were no seal masters in Konoha, so there was no way to expedite the project. As there was nothing he could do about it at this point, he sighed and nodded at the report. Perhaps incorporating the sealing arts into the academy is a good idea, but hiring outsiders to teach the sealing arts would be very expensive and difficult to find teachers. Sarutobi looked at Kaharu and Homura, the project managers, and said, "Thank you Shikaku and Inoichi for the report. Give the team my regards and tell them to continue their excellent work. I'm looking forward to the results of their efforts. Next, I want to know how the academy is faring." Given that he was currently in charge of the Konoha Shinobi Academy, Homaru assumed leadership. The Academy rehabilitation project is going as planned. The new subjects are welcomed enthusiastically by the students and exam results are promising for future shinobis, both practical and written. Tsunade's assistant, Shizune, is currently taking a hand in conducting seminars on medical jutsus as an introduction for those who are interested in becoming a medic nin. She will be handling the lessons on actual medical-related classes when students reached their final year. He coughed briefly before continuing. Homura concluded, frowning slightly as he mentioned the traitor's name. The old and new instructors are qualified after taking their evaluation last month. The only snag we encountered is the traitor which Yumino Iruka and Uzumaki Naruto apprehended a few months back. That someone could escape such an act was an insult to his and Kaharu's skills and backgrounds. Sarutobi gave a nod. The news that a traitor had managed to get inside the academy was disheartening, but happily, Mizuki was a good teacher, so nothing bad happened. It appears that his sole goal was to use a failing student as a means of stealing the forbidden scroll. After nodding to Homura and, indirectly, to Kaharu, indicating that he agreed with what he had heard, he asked, "Good. How about the missions? What are this month's statistics?" A tall, glasses-wearing Junin rose to respond to the Hokage's question. "My name is Tetsuo, Hokage-sama. I am the assistant of the director of the Missions and Deployment Department. As of today, we have a total of 122 new and old missions, mainly of which are from Fire Country and surrounding areas. Mission success rate is at 98%. The 2% failure ratio is attributed to insufficient info provided by the client or other reasons that does not incriminate our own FOSS's performance. 17 of these missions are currently underway and its success or failure will be reported in the next month's meeting." When Sarutobi heard the numbers, he grinned. Hearing that Konoha remains the strongest shinobi in the world was encouraging, and he expressed his satisfaction that the significant progress he had made during the leaf was bearing fruit. When he learned about the accomplishments of the several departments he established in the village to handle the various operations of the leaf, the Department of Missions and Deployment being just one of them, he also gave himself a mental pat on the back. Prior to this, he was inundated with paperwork because it was all forwarded to him. He gave the assignment to different people this time. To ensure that everything is in order, he naturally specified which documents should be sent to him. Every week, thorough notes and references are sent to him. His thoughts were interrupted by a cough coming from a corner of the room. Glancing up, he saw that Danzo, the elderly warhawk, was the source of the noise. "Yes, Danzo, you have something to say." Danzo looked a little uneasy, as though what he was about to say might have more permanent repercussions. "Yes, Hokage-sama, I have received a report from one of my agents posing as a genin in Team 7. It is about Uzumaki Naruto." Sarutobi merely arched an ear. Since there had been rumors that Naruto had changed into a werewolf in front of everyone near the East Gate, he had been anticipating this. When one of his Anbu agents ran up to him breathless and reported what had happened in a hysterical voice, he actually laughed out loud. When the Anbu advised him not to give it too much thought, he nearly laughed at him. Saruto asked in a cool tone, "Do you mean Naruto's changes into a werewolf, Danzo?" Everybody in the room gave him a shocked look. With a look of shock in his voice, the warhawk questioned, "You know about this, Hokage-sama?" Sarutobi responded, sniggering at the dumbfounded expression on everyone's face, "Of course. Who do you think gave him the command to finally reveal his bloodline to everyone? Sure, it was necessary to hide it when he was still young and untrained. But now that he is a fully trained shinobi of the leaf, then he can easily protect himself." Since soon, Tsunade, and Jiraiya, pretty much everyone has been grinning at the revelation. "Hokage-sama, can you tell us about this bloodline?" inquired Nara Shikaku. Tsunade took the podium to address the council as a whole. The Hokage had already briefed her on the matter, and since Naruto is now directly under the Hokage's command and is no longer regarded as a civilian, it was decided that it was safe for the higher-ups to be aware of his bloodline. To get everyone's attention, she gave a cough. Naruto's bloodline is quite unique and the first of its kind. It was activated for the first time when he was 8 years old, exactly 4 years ago. He approached Hokage-sama about the changes in his body and was immediately accompanied to Assistant Director Kato for a checkup. At this point, everyone turned to face the cheerfully waving doctor on the other side of the room, who made them all start to perspire. She went on. "The bloodline is quite straightforward. It changed Naruto's physical makeup to include dense muscular and skeletal system, making him 5 times stronger than your average genin. He is also faster due to the changes. I think everyone noticed how he suddenly grew muscles and height overnight 4 years ago. Well, that was because of his bloodline. There are 3 more changes that are considered as the most significant. 1. His immune system and regeneration capabilities skyrocketed to the point that lethal wounds are healed in seconds. From the looks of it, the healing factor granted to him as the Jinchuriki of Kyuubi was enhanced by his bloodline, making him almost unkillable. 2. His chakra capacity is more than that of a cage-level shinobi, exceeding our Hokage's own. And 3. It gives him the ability to change into a 9-foot-tall werewolf at will, amplifying said capabilities up to 5 times. The potential of such bloodline astounded Danzo and the other department heads present, as did the Shinobi Council. The thought of adding such capabilities to the shinobi forces and how it would strengthen the Leaf beyond measure had the Warhawk salivating already. If there is proof that Uzumaki is descended from him, then... Danzo began, but the Hokage cut him off, grinning as if a practical joke was about to be played on them. Everyone became uneasy because of this. A smirking Hokage, after all, portends something cunning for him. Yes, Danzo, I know what you're trying to say. Yes, Uzumaki Naruto will start his own clan here in Konoha, which will eventually make him a clan head with all rights and responsibilities it contains as mandated in the Konoha Charter by the Shodai Hokage, stating that those who have a bloodline are immediately given clan status in the Leaf. However, it would not be given to him immediately. Either he gets it when he reaches the rank of Chunin or when he reaches the age of 18. Sarutobi clarified. A whisper among the people discussed Naruto's ancestry and his ascent to the position of clan head. All of them were supportive, though, as they never harbored animosity toward Naruto in the first place, and the majority of them expressed their worries about the blonde to the now-defunct civilian council. Naruto's bloodline is not the main concern of this meeting, so let's put it aside since it is still too early to talk about it. Let's just put it down that Naruto has a bloodline and that's it. If such meetings ever come in the future, then it would be possible only if Naruto is here, since it is his bloodline to begin with. Now Danzo, I want to hear your report about Root, Sarutobi said with a voice that simply said, drop or else. Danzo acknowledged the shift in subject with a nod and continued with his report. Danzo stated with pride that he was handling high-ranking missions typically reserved for Anbu. There are no significant changes in the Root program aside from 25 new recruits undergoing training as we speak. Of course, you have given your blessing for these recruits, so no problem there. Root currently has 5 S-rank missions outside the village. 3 of them are successful and the report will be given to you at the end of the meeting. 2 of these missions are still on the field and possibly finish next week if all goes to plan. Sarutobi gave a nod. Good. Thanks for the report, Danzo, and make sure that Root's skills is maintained for the Leaf to flourish. Now we need to discuss a crucial information discovered by one of Jiraiya's spy network outside the village. I give the floor to him. Rising from his chair, the Toad Sage spoke to the assembled crowd. It has come to my attention that there are 2 major groups right now that are currently active in the shadows of the elemental countries. One of them is a direct threat to Konoha while the other potentially so in the future. The first group belongs to my ex-teammate Orochimaru. From the reports I got from Rice Country, it seems that the snake pedophile created his own village, the Sound, in the bowels of Rice. So far, I haven't been able to infiltrate their defenses since the village is underground and entrances are well protected from infiltrators. However, there is a rumor of a plan to invade Konoha within the year, possibly in the upcoming Chunin exams. There is another rumor of a secondary objective, but so far we don't know what it is. The second group is called Akatsuki. We don't have any solid information about how they operate, but it appears that they are composed of S-rank missing nins from various shinobi villages. Their mission appears to be connected to the Biju, but I don't have any hard evidence at this time. My spy network is working non-stop to gather more information before we can take any action. This time, a nervous murmur trailed the Sanin's information. They knew that the snake Sanin was extremely dangerous in terms of strength and cunning, so their main concern was Orochimaru. Do you know what he's after? The head of the Akamichi clan, Shuza, inquired. None. Jiraiya shook his head. My spy network only turned up hearsay, lacking any real proof to support its claims. Even if this is only a rumor, we shouldn't let our guard down. Orochimaru will be taking revenge on the village for 2 reasons, if I understand him correctly. He has 2 goals. First, to destroy the Leaf because he despises it, and second, something to do with his experiments. I did discover, though, that Suna and Sound have an open channel of communication. As we speak, my spy network is on it. The Hokage cut them off with his orders. Everyone scowled. An attack on the village is a serious matter, and it was fortunate that the defense and barrier teams were already up and running to give them a heads up if shit comes up roost. At this time, we are unable to address it as we do not possess any further details regarding the plan. If such an event occurs, all we can do is hope to be ready. These are my orders. Jiraiya, please collaborate with the barrier team to complete the project as soon as you can, ideally in time for the Chunin exam in 5 months. Come up with a plan for both attack and defense, Shikaku, in case an invasion occurs. Danzo, try to sneak into Orochimaru's base in Rice Country using Root's stealth unit to see what Sound and Suna are up to. Since we are currently allies, I'll give Suna the benefit of the doubt, but I don't want to be caught off guard by anything they may throw at us in the future. Knowing the extent of their forces is important to me because Jiraiya's spy network lacks the ability to infiltrate. Try to expand our medical program's current capabilities, Tsunade, so that we have enough supplies for our injured in the event that such an invasion does take place. To all of you, good luck with your individual responsibilities and keep up your training to fortify yourself against unforeseen circumstances. Any queries? Given that nobody was going to speak, he adjourned the meeting until the next one. After breakfast, Naruto tidied up their camp and worked out the specifics of their plan for the day. After that, he called in 12 one-tailed wolves to serve as scouts, and Anko did the same for her snakes. His summons were like eager puppies, with tongues lolling out the side of their muzzles and tails wagging furiously. Anko burst out laughing at that, and he could have sworn that the dozen or so snakes that were watching the whole thing were snickering as well. He gave the wolves instructions, rolling his eyes. Something about the snakes hissing at him made him sullen, especially when he knew that they were laughing at him and his wolves didn't help with all their excited yips and howls. He gritted his teeth and forced himself not to lash out at them. Naruto decided to hang out with Team 7 to kill boredom after Anko, her snakes, and his wolves left to do their jobs, leaving him with nothing to do since Tazuna usually works on the bridge somewhere in the middle of the morning. He thought about playing rough with some of his more playful wolves, like he did in Training Ground 44, but he didn't want to waste any energy in case the client was attacked while he was on guard duty, so he left the camp and headed toward Tsunami's house. When he noticed Kakashi and a grumpy Team 7 leaving the house, he was no longer inside the safety of the forest. "Hey, where have all of you gone?" He rolled his eyes inwardly, thinking that the team didn't like getting up too early, and cheerfully greeted them, ignoring the scathing looks directed at him. Under his face mask, Kakashi smiled at him and said, "We're heading to the forest to train." "What say you?" the Junin questioned in an unduly upbeat manner. "Anko-sensei left already to scout the island along with my wolves," Naruto shrugged in response to the query. "As I am Tazuna's bodyguard for the day, I have nothing to do until he departs for the bridge." "All right, would you please join us? You could pick up a few new skills." Kakashi was invited, gesturing for him to come along. Naruto, who was always ready to learn something new, smiled at the invitation. "Okay, step forward, Kakashi-sensei." Naruto and Team 7 entered the forest where Kakashi began his lecture on tree walking. He laughed a little at Sakura and Sasuke's response when Kakashi performed the exercise by climbing a tree without using his hands. Sai remained as unmoving as ever, so nothing unusual there. He went up the same tree that Kakashi had used to demonstrate the exercise in order to enrage Sasuke. Walking to one of the high branches, which allowed the genins below to see him staring down at them, made Naruto smile, and his smile grew wider at the sight of the Uchiha fuming and glaring up at him. He had definitely picked up some of Anko's sadism, but he didn't mind it at all if his target was the Uchiha. Naruto found the exercise amusing and had to laugh a little when the Uchiha, having applied too much chakra to his feet, was blasted off the tree he was practicing on. He was taken aback, though, when Sakura and Sai completed the exercise simultaneously. Sai was not surprising, as he exuded the air of an experienced genin, but Sakura was a different story. To the chagrin of the Uchiha once more, he watched Sakura perch on a branch in the middle of the tree next to the one he was on, grinning at how simple the exercise was. The next step, however, was more taxing because water walking requires a continuous flow of chakra to maintain, and Sakura had no intention of stretching her reserves by continuing with the exercise. He saw that Sakura had stopped after only one attempt at the exercise, despite having learned from his lessons with Anko that those with lower chakra reserves tend to master chakra exercises the fastest. He made the instant decision to lend a hand to Sakura in the slightest, leaping from his perch toward the tree she was using, landing on one of the upper branches, and making his way down to where she was contentedly sitting, admiring her idol. "Hello, Sakura, would you mind if I joined you?" As Naruto got closer to the genin with the pink hair, he asked. When Sakura looked up, she saw Naruto walking toward her. She nodded, and he proceeded to the branch she was using and took a seat next to her. "Naruto, what do you want?" she questioned in an impartial tone. Sakura's tone caught Naruto's attention, but he dismissed it, explaining that his purpose in helping her was to support her rather than to soothe her feelings. "I recommend that you keep doing this," he said, grinning. "Why, I completed it earlier, so there's no need to proceed," she retorted, frowning at being instructed. Shaking his head, the blonde werewolf gave an explanation of the exercise's advantages. "All right, Sakura, I will explain the exercise as it was taught to me by Anko sensei. The various levels of chakra control exercises have a purpose. I believe we already completed the Academy's basic leaf balancing exercise. It was taught to us then because we don't have that much chakra to begin with, and it is used as an introduction on how to control our chakra," he said, observing Sakura nod. "You are currently performing the tree walking exercise, which is the next level. This practice serves two purposes. First, it strengthens your ability to control your chakra by directing it toward the soles of your feet, which lack tenketsu points for releasing a continuous flow of chakra. You can use it anywhere in your body if you can channel it there. The second purpose of the tree walking exercise is to assist people like you who have low chakra potential in order to raise their own potential and get ready for the water walking exercise, which is the next level. With two exceptions, it is comparable to tree walking. First, you have to time the exercise precisely and modify your technique based on the water's movement. Secondly, it takes a lot of chakra to complete because you have to extend your chakra into the water beneath your feet in order to stay above the surface. In order to significantly increase your reserves for chakra usage in the future, I advise you to keep doing tree walking even though you succeeded on your first attempt. How did you learn all of this? Sakura nodded as she heard Naruto's explanation, thinking the blonde was making a lot of sense. Sakura questioned, secretly annoyed that Naruto, the previous last person in their batch, was teaching her something she was ignorant of. Easy. I was practically drilled with it by Anko sensei during our 1-month training course. This is one of the reasons why I don't do genjutsu, since the amount of chakra I have makes it impossible for me to control fully, Naruto said in a neutral voice. I had too much chakra to begin with, so I have to learn everything about chakra from ground up to increase my level of control. Sakura turned to look up and saw Kakashi crouched on one of the branches above them, but before she could say anything else, she heard a voice above them. Naruto is right, Sakura. Kakashi cut them off without turning to face them. What he told you is the fundamental and sophisticated theory of chakra control. There are prerequisites before moving on to the next level, but these are not arranged in order of difficulty. You weren't informed by Naruto that your low chakra reserves were the reason you were able to complete the exercise successfully on your first attempt. The easier it is to control, the less chakra you have. You will not be able to properly increase the amount of chakra you have if you stop now. You will not be able to develop the chakra's spiritual and physical components. Watching Sasuke and Sai below, he explained, with your current reserves, even if you master water walking, you can only stand on the surface for 5 minutes before suffering from chakra exhaustion, which would take days before you can recover properly to do it again. He was secretly proud that Naruto took the time to assist his team with the exercise and that he already knew and was proficient in it. Sakura had no choice but to give in and accept what Naruto had taught her, especially since Kakashi had supported him. She scowled when Kakashi informed her that her reserves were low, but she knew that kunoichis always have less chakra than their male counterparts but make up for it with their superior control. Choosing to go on with the exercise, Sakura planted her foot on the tree and ran up and down again, keeping that in mind. When Sakura continued the exercise without needing to persuade her further, Kakashi and Naruto nodded. Thank you, Naruto, for helping Sakura by explaining the reason behind tree walking. That was a good thing you did, smiled Kakashi. Shrugging, Naruto carried on watching Team 7, chuckling when Sasuke gave Sakura a glare for her persistent, unintentional demonstration of her exercise prowess. Sensei, it was the least I could have done. Furthermore, we ought to support one another since they are Konoha shinobi. Naruto said, who knows? Maybe this will help her in the long run and make her a better kunoichi than she is now. However, he wasn't totally optimistic that Sakura would be able to move past her fangirl phase. After Kakashi nodded, They fell into a friendly silence while watching Team 7 train. Every time the Uchiha made a mistake, Naruto would occasionally snicker and guffaw, breaking the tension. Naruto and Tazuna left for the bridge after lunch, and the old man apologized for staying later than he should have because he had chosen to sleep in because of the stress of the journey and the battle yesterday. Naruto readily accepted the apology, explaining that it was understandable because the old man was a civilian and didn't have the training necessary to survive long journeys. It didn't help that he was attacked by Zabuza along the way, which made his nerves shot. Upon reaching the bridge, Naruto was astounded by its immense dimensions, both in length and overall. He knew that creating such a massive structure required a great deal of forethought and strength, and his admiration for the elderly man grew even more upon realizing that it was nearly complete. Positioning himself amidst the lumber piles on the bridge's edge, Naruto stretched his senses to ensure he was ready for any attack. Observing that not many workers were contributing to the workload, he asked Tazuna about it, and the elderly man surly replied that the number of workers now was only a quarter of what he had initially. It seemed that morale was low, and Gato's threats had made more workers back down. In an attempt to help, Naruto made 20 clones, much to Tazuna's surprise, and instructed him to put them to work where he needed them. Not to be deterred, he gladly gave the necessary orders and watched with delight as the group moved lumber, hammered large nails on enormous beams, and easily cut rocks to size. Naruto then returned to his watch over the bridge, but not before telling Tazuna to come to him if he ever needed extra hands. To his relief, Naruto's day came to an end without any action, and he was pleased to see that, thanks to his clones, construction was moving more quickly. Anko arrived back at camp at dinnertime and sat down in front of Naruto, who was preparing fish soup at the time and was busy adding spices to it. "Now, Anko-sensei, what have you discovered?" While adding a few herbs to the pot and stirring the soup, Naruto posed this question. "We easily searched the island, but there was no sign of Gato anywhere," Anko sourly remarked, "nothing much Gaki. We did, however, discover an improvised wharf across the island. Discovered some footprints there, so I suppose that's how Gato enters the nation covertly," she concluded, eyeing the soup with a hungry expression, and her stomach rumbled at the aroma of the delectable food. Hearing Anko's stomach protest, Naruto smiled and said, "Sensei, it's almost done, just need to let it simmer a little longer." "What then are you doing tomorrow?" He added a few more herbs to the soup and said, "In order to investigate the small islands that surround Weeb, I need your assistance. His base is undoubtedly in one of them." She took 2 bowls and spoons out of her pack and gave them to Naruto, thinking, "I'll talk to Kakashi later and tell him to take up the bridge duty so I can take you with me." With gratitude, Naruto took the offered bowls and set them next to the soup pot, sniffing it to determine when it was ready. Taking one of the bowls, he scooped a large amount and gave it to Anko, who took it with greed and began to eat. Anko, savoring the taste of the fish and herbs in her mouth, said, "This is pretty good Gaki. Where did you learn to cook?" "I learned to cook when I was 9 years old," Naruto said, picking up another bowl, filling it up, and starting to eat. Anko growled at this, but Naruto ignored it. "Anyway, I learned how to cook from Soji since he was busy with the forge at that time, so he let me man the kitchen," Anko said. "I have enough money from working with Soji and he was kind enough to buy my groceries for me since the villagers usually throw me out. I started experimenting after reading some cookbooks at the library," he said, "and once I was done, I started eating." The idea of enjoying delicious meals while on a mission outside the village made Anko nod enthusiastically. "Good. As of right now, you are the designated cook on our missions. Gaki, I always expect food like this. I'm not big on rations," she said, trembling from the memory of the taste of the ration bars that shinobis usually carried on missions. "Sure, they're healthy, but they taste like dirt." Naruto simply regarded her for a long moment, to which she grinned in return. He shrugged. "Anyway, have you heard anything from the locals?" He swallowed the fish he was chewing and asked. "Nope," she said, shaking her head as she gave herself another spoonful of soup. Because they are terrified of Gato, the villagers refrained from saying anything that would incite him. "We are on our own, based on the appearance of things. This complicates the mission, but there is nothing we can do about it," she said, pulling a pout. Naruto nodded. Anko never liked long, boring missions like this one. She preferred short, to-the-point missions, especially ones that could end with a lot of blood spilled, a couple of kunai, and screams, lots of screams. "Sensei, there's nothing we can do about it. We should probably head to bed after dinner so we can start early tomorrow," he said, taking a slurp of the soup that remained in his bowl. Anko gave a nod. "You go ahead, Gaki. After we eat, tidy up the camp, and then I'll speak with Kakashi about the plans for tomorrow." 30 minutes of their usual travel time would get them to the makeshift wharf at the other side of Weeb, then it would take an hour or two of scouting each island before moving on to the next. After dinner, Anko immediately left the camp to look for Kakashi while Naruto was poring over a map of Weeb he acquired before leaving Konoha. Anko returned to the camp an hour later and told him that Kakashi would take care of the guard duty while they went ahead with their plans for tomorrow. They went straight to bed to ensure they would have enough energy for their mission the following day. Anko woke Naruto up at 4 in the morning, and he groggily got out of his sleeping bag, stretched a few times to loosen up his back, and got ready for battle. After coming out of the tent fully geared up, he finished assembling their weapons and finished eating the stew that would hold them over until later. It took them an hour to reach the wharf Anko had indicated, and as soon as they did, Naruto started sniffing around for scents. A few minutes later, he confirmed that there were plenty of human scents in the area, all of which were leading towards the town, so finding Gato's entry point was undoubtedly successful. Since the islands were not far away, they both chose to water walk in order to save time. When Naruto announced that he smelled the fading scents of humans on the beach, they hit the jackpot around noon upon reaching the fourth island. It seems that Gato chose the location because of the dense forest that can perfectly hide anything from a bandit camp to a small army. They immediately headed to the woods, with Naruto leading the team this time because his sense of smell was stronger than the others. It only took 5 minutes to check the first island after Naruto told Anko that there were no human scents nearby. They arrived quickly at a large bandit camp encircling a large mansion, and since it was still midday, they both chose to stay in the woods and scout the area, gathering information. Tonight is the night of infiltration. When the moon rose above the horizon, Gato's base became a jumble of activity as some bandits lit massive bonfires around the mansion to drive the shadows back into the trees, while others went about their usual business of patrolling the camp to find and apprehend any intruders. They had no idea that two figures were watching them from the shade of the trees, two pairs of eyes soaking in every detail of their surroundings. As Zabuza and his apprentice might very well be in the same building as their employer, Naruto and Anko were perched atop a large tree overlooking the bandit camp and Gato's mansion, suppressing their chakra to ensure no shinobi could detect their presence. Anko quickly gave Naruto the prearranged signal to begin the mission by tapping him on the shoulder before slipping into the shadows and breaking into the camp. After giving the clearing one last glance, Naruto leapt farther into the forest and then broadened his senses to ensure he was alone. Once he descended to the forest floor and began calling in some of the wolves he would require for this mission. 4 wolves materialized in front of him, staring around expectantly and waiting for orders after a puff of smoke. "All right, guys." Naruto gave the excited wolves a thumbs up, signaling the location of the camp. "We are going to create a distraction in the forest surrounding a camp south of our current location," he said, evoking yips and a lot of tail wagging. He sighed inwardly, wondering why his summons always behaved like puppies. The 4 in front of him appeared prepared to carry out more than simple distractions that could complicate the mission, so he decided to broaden his orders slightly. "We are not to engage the enemy, but I want you guys to make a ruckus at the edge of the camp under the shadow of the forest to keep them occupied," he ordered. "Recognized." A few minutes later, the howls started, and Naruto heard some bandits shouting. The 4 wolves nodded before racing into the forest. He got a few laughs from Anko and the wolves when he revealed the strategy, but it was a modified version of the hit-and-run strategy used by wild animals, which he and Anko came up with during their month-long training. During their first mission, they used this tactic to good effect. The wolves would act as decoys to lure the attention away from them by creating the impression that the camp is surrounded or plagued by wolves. Hearing his wolves play, he acted immediately, assigning Anko the task of scouting the camp and Gato's mansion since she was small enough to do so covertly and her summons were naturally stealthy. His role was to watch the movements within the camp because his frame was not designed for such a mission, or to provide another distraction, a lot of explosions in case Anko was discovered and had to flee. Returning with a snicker to the noise his wolves were making in the forest, he jumped back to his perch overlooking the clearing where Gato's base is situated. He did notice that the howls and growls of the patrolling bandits made it appear as though there was a large pack of wolves ready to attack, and he nearly burst out laughing when some of the bandits leapt out of their skins as another howl broke the silence of the forest. He used his extraordinary vision to count the bandits in the camp and noted their weapons in case they launched an attack. He also looked for potential explosive detonation sites to maximize damage in case Anko needed a diversion to escape, and he drooled at the idea. He also made a mental note to blow up the ships to ensure that they wouldn't be leaving anytime soon, and now that they've found none at the beach where they entered the island, he and his sensei should search the island to see where Gato docks his boats. Anko, taking advantage of the shadows, slithered through the camp toward the mansion in the center of the clearing, smiling at the practicality of her apprentice's summons for these missions, and made a point of devising more plans with the adaptable wolves. Infiltration was simple because the bandits circling the area were focused on the perimeter because of Naruto's distractions. Following the shadows to Gato's mansion, she ducked from one tent to another to stay out of sight. She paused briefly and ducked low when a dozen or so bandits emerged from the mansion toward the camp's edge, yelling about how they were attacking wolves. Good. They were duly distracted. She dashed towards the shadows on the eastern side of the tall structure, pausing briefly to catch her breath before accelerating without chakra, a tiring but useful tactic if you want to avoid being noticed by shinobi in case Zabuza and his apprentice were inside the mansion. She called forth a dozen small snakes and instructed them to explore the mansion. The snakes nodded and dispersed, not sensing any presence nearby. Once more sticking to the shadows, she circled the mansion in search of a point of entry. Upon entering, she closed the window and took note of her surroundings. She noticed a window at the back of the dwelling and silently peered inside to see if anyone was there. When she did not, she used a kunai to pry the window open, wide enough for her to pass through. It was a plain room without any furniture. However, what made this room special was the number of weapons stuck on the walls and boxes. Jackpot. The walls were lined with racks upon racks of weapons, like swords, pole axes, hammers, scythes, and bows. The crates were filled to the brim with throwing knives, kunais, and shurikens. She frowned at the crates since these were shinobi weapons and not simply used by thugs and mercenaries unless they have training to use them. Shrugging, she called in another group of snakes to survey the mansion and report to her anything the occupants discussed. She also instructed them to come back in an hour for a debriefing. After the snakes had left, she pulled out a storage scroll and opened a dozen empty scrolls, along with some inks and brushes, feeling grateful that her apprentice had taught her the fundamentals of seals, particularly storage seals, since that was about all Naruto knew about the craft. She smiled and cheerfully started creating a ton of storage scrolls so she could take the entire armory with her. She stopped working and considered giving them to Naruto as a birthday present because all these metals could easily provide him with a month's worth of products that he could sell for his store, of course, since they were a team. She smiled once more and cheerfully resumed her work, humming the whole time. Zabuza was in bed right now, getting help from his masked aide. Bandages covered his right shoulder and arm, and his right cheek was swollen slightly from the punch from the snake Junin that had enhanced his chakra. "Are you done with that now?" As he rubbed the bandages off his arm, which was beginning to itch and he didn't like it, he complained. Before returning to grinding the herbs in a bowl with the ring at the end of a kunai, the masked shinobi turned to face Zabuza. "Not yet, Zabuza-sama," the masked shinobi said, "I just need to add one more herb before it's finished." "If I didn't know any better, you're taking your time just to spite me, Haku," Zabuza said, casting a sour glance at his apprentice. "And when we're inside, why don't you take off your mask?" As he continued to scratch the itch, he addressed the now named Haku. He finished grinding the herbs into paste and brought it to her master, sighing again, and then revealed a face that would make quite a few men drool, even though he was clearly a boy. One of the reasons he wore the mask was to hide his feminine looks since he would get repeatedly flirted with by men who prefer to think with their second head down south, usually to the point of him turning them into pincushions. When Haku took off Zabuza's bandages to reveal his injuries from his crash into the tree, they both fell silent. He then carefully applied the healing paste to the wounds, causing Zabuza to wince at the unexpected sting. "Ah, Haku, why aren't you more gentle?" Zabuza whimpered, sounding almost childlike despite his menacing appearance. "I swear that you find a perverse pleasure in making it painful." After giving him a serious look, Haku took another piece of paste in his finger and applied it very gently to an inflamed wound, causing Zabuza to squawk in protest and agony, which he chose to ignore. "That hurts, Zabuza-sama." With no trace of pity, he uttered harsh words, "Now just shut up and take it like a man," and returned to carefully applying the paste. Zabuza complained about cruel apprentices and a complete lack of respect. "When do you think I'll be able to return to my state of readiness for battle?" As he rubbed some of the stings from his wounds, he questioned. After completing the paste application, Haku is now covering the area with a new layer of bandage. I would say a week. You were unfortunate to sustain injuries to your sword arm, and some of the wounds are quite deep. The weariness of your chakras is another reason why you are healing slowly. As he finished tying the bandage's end in place, he said, it was fairly simple to realign the shoulder, but you need a lot of rest to properly replenish your chakra stores and the wounds need to heal before you can use it freely. Why didn't you stick to the plan of using your needles to put me in a death state instead of using your technique to get me away from there? Zabuza asked, nodding. He asked, jabbing at the new bandages with a finger, which Haku, who was glaring at him, swatted away, not too gently. Zabuza simply glared back. Zabuza scowled as he said, I need to get you out of there in a hurry since the blonde shinobi was already planning to impale you with that huge sword of his. You were already unconscious, so I don't need to put you in death state. Shunshin is a technique I could use, but I don't want to be helpless when I use it. He concluded his explanation by wiping his fingers on a towel. My ice mirror is immune to weapons, so it is the best thing I came up with to get you out of there with both of us in one piece. The demon of the mist considered the blonde werewolf and nodded, asking, do you know anything about his skills? When he entered the clearing and quickly eliminated every one of my water clones, it alarmed me. He thought to himself, both curious and afraid at the same time about the golden werewolf. Although he had been exposed to many bloodlines while in mist, he was positive that he had never heard of one that truly transformed a person into a werewolf. Sure, they were only 10% of my total power, but a mere genin shouldn't be able to take them down. I believe it's a bloodline because there was no indication of illusion and he changed back after battling your clones. I saw him sparring with your clones, and I can attest to his strength. Incredibly strong. His chakra levels are unimaginable, and he possesses incredible strength and speed. Even though his kenjutsu appears a little sloppy, he could still compete with you if you two decide to go at it. But his speed and strength are far greater than yours, I'm afraid, Haku remarked, thinking back to the fight in Wave. I am aware. That child is unique, and if he is Mitarashi's apprentice, we can be certain he has received the right training. When it comes to killing, that woman shares my sadistic tendencies. Have you managed to get his name? He inquired with his trainee. Shaking his head, Haku said, no, I didn't. I wasn't able to pay close attention to their conversation during the battle because I was too busy watching you. The lack of details made Zabuza sulk. We need to know what he is capable of. Since Snake Mistress Anko and Copycat Kakashi are well known, I am aware of their abilities. With my silent killing technique, I can easily take out Kakashi, and you can essentially hold Anko in place while I finish him off. Not kill her, just distract her while I fight Kakashi. Although Kakashi's genins are easily startled, I don't think he can't train them for the upcoming round. The blonde werewolf could be a problem because he is the only wildcard in the equation. We lack information on the werewolf and I don't like it, Zabuza said. He can easily counter Kakashi's Sharingan with his hidden mist technique while Haku serves as a decoy holding Anko in place. After hearing his master's description of the Konoha nin's abilities, Haku nodded. I can go to the mainland and scout around, he said. Before we attack the Konoha shinobi in a week, I can pose as a local to learn more about them. What plans do you have? With a contemplative frown on his face, he questioned, trying to figure out how to obtain the information without being apprehended or slain. Not yet. It wouldn't do much good with the werewolf's clones, but we could always use Gato's thugs as a distraction. I promise that youngster is a chakra powerhouse because he summoned so many strong clones with enough strength to deal some damage, and my instinct tells me he has more to give. I propose that we go straight after the bridge and eliminate the bridge builder there, declared Zabuza, considering his options for completing the mission without losing his life. The ice-wielding shinobi dismissed his master's tactic with a shake of his head, saying it was too simple. We need a better plan, Zabuza-sama, reprimanded Haku, who preferred to stay in the shadows and attack when the opportunity presented itself rather than taking the offensive due to his fighting style, which places more emphasis on speed than strength. I understand, but there isn't enough data for us to develop a plan. Zabuza was interrupted when the door to their room opened, revealing a short man in an expensive business suit flanked by two samurai bodyguards in full armor. What are you doing here, Gato? When he saw their employer, he scowled. He never liked the man and would be content to leave the company if it weren't for his wealth. After all, he was a wealthy tycoon who needed the money. Gato mocked the two missing nins, sneering, it appears that I chose the incorrect team to handle my issues. My ass is a demon of the mist. You were incapable of even managing a group of menial ninjas from the Leaf, and children easily defeated your allies. A hand seized Haku's shoulder as he prepared to strike Gato for showing disdain for his master. This is just a minor setback, Gato. Zabuza growled at his employer as he held his apprentice in place, wincing at the sudden pain in his arm from the effort of keeping Haku rooted to his side. The Leaf sent reinforcements, strong ones at that, something we had not anticipated. This time, we're not going to kill the bridge builder by surprise. Just make sure you have our money ready when we finish the contract, Zabuza said, glaring at Gato and giving the room a hint of his murderous intent, which caused the three people by the door to shudder. With all the bravery he still had, Gato leveled Zabuza with a glare of his own, though his height made it less effective. See that you do, Zabuza. I refuse to pay for inept assistance. He then departed the room, his bodyguard slamming the door behind them. Zabuza-sama, you ought to have allowed me to kill him. He was impolite, he grumbled coldly to Zabuza, staring scornfully at the closed door. Zabuza moaned and dropped back onto the bed. Haku, Gato is of no importance. We don't require his deference. His money is what we need. He gave an explanation before closing his eyes to sleep. Once we kill the bridge builder, we get our payment, then hightail it out of here. With a grunt, Haku returned to the table to prepare more medical paste in an attempt to distract himself from their employer. Both fell silent, neither realizing that there was a pair of amber eyes watching everything from the darkened corner of the room, then stealthily disappearing out the window. After his meeting with Zabuza and his apprentice, Gato went back to his office. He detested shinobis, but he could never deny that their training makes them ideal mercenaries, especially missing nins like Zabuza who work for profit rather than the honor of their village. When is our reinforcement going to arrive? He asked, turning to one of his samurai bodyguards as he settled into his opulent, expensive office chair. With a smooth tone, he questioned. Next week. With only 2 vessels, it will take some time to bring your own troops from Demon Country. They will slow down due to the weight. If you want to bring them here, sir, why don't you get more ships? It's pushing it to cram 300 thugs into 2 ships, the samurai questioned. Quit talking. Gato glared at his samurai. Don't give me instructions. I'm making money with my ships, so I don't need to stop them from making deliveries in order to get my reinforcements here more quickly. A week is more than enough time for my plan to work, anyway, Gato remarked, smirking at the thought of what might transpire upon their arrival. A nervous bodyguard moved in his place, asking, "Are you sure you want to proceed with your plan, sir?" He spoke nervously, staring at the door as though he thought the demon of the mist would materialize at any moment to murder them all. I heard about Zabuza and he's very dangerous. Demon of the mist, snorted the businessman. Yes, exactly. He is now bedridden for a week after Tezuna's hired Konoha shinobis whipped him. Besides, that's what I do with missing nins, he smiled suddenly. Hire them by giving them an enormous salary, and when they're finished, kill them with statistics. They're not worth the money, he concluded, grinning wickedly at his scheme to deceive Zabuza and his trainee. The bodyguards returned to their spots by the door to watch over their master after nodding at their smug employer. After their discussion, none of the 3 people in the room saw a snake slither out the open window. When Naruto noticed a shadow move out of the mansion, he immediately leapt from his perch and headed into the darkness of the trees towards his sensei's rendezvous point, which took him 5 minutes to reach because he had to take care not to draw attention to himself from the sentries. The sight of Anko sitting down and enjoying a stick of dango made him jump off his perch. Anko always has dango when she's on a mission, so he was shocked to see her enjoying it. "Hey sensei, how was it?" When he reached the clearing, he inquired. When Anko noticed that Naruto had leapt from his perch, she beckoned him to approach, offering him a stick of dango, which he accepted with gratitude, and motioned for him to take a seat, saying, in a smile, "We got what we came for and some extras." "Extras?" he asked, biting into a piece of dango as he shot her a puzzled glance. He inquired. "I had the good fortune to enter the mansion via their arsenal." "Yep. I always knew it wasn't a good idea to put your weapons in a room with a window," she said, smiling at him as she produced a green scroll and waved it in his direction. Naruto's eyes grew wide. "I have all of their armaments here. We'll be long gone by morning and I'll bet my next paycheck that they won't find out. By the way, Zabuza and his apprentice are in there. My snake claims that Zabuza is hurt from the fight, and judging by the way he was tending to Zabuza, Haku appears to be trained as a medic nin." Anko said, "It would take him a week to be battle ready," and then he bit the last dango off the stick and threw it away. Anything else, sensei? Naruto nodded at the details and seemed a little excited about the weapons his sensei had managed to take from the mansion. He inquired. With a menacing smile, Anko said, yes. Zabuza appears to be very concerned about you, my dear werewolf. She gleefully added, in fact, he can't think of a plan to take us on because you were his wild card. Another snake reported that Gato is planning to betray Zabuza after he offs Tazuna. It appears that the slimy bastard recruits missing nins on a regular basis by enticing them with large rewards and then murdering them with as many goons as he can muster. Since missing nins aren't compelled to train every day, they aren't usually in peak condition, so you can anticipate a gradual decline in their strength. In the same way as Zabuza, she told her apprentice, he has a fearsome reputation, so even with the two of us attacking him together, Kakashi and I should be having trouble defeating him. They have the element of surprise so far, and anything they do should prove to be successful if they can come up with a good strategy. He nodded at the report. So what are we going to do now, sensei? He made a clone to tell the wolves to dispel, and then he asked Anko. The clone saluted and gave them both a cheeky smile before bolting into the forest. Anko smiled shyly at Naruto after striking a contemplative pose. I don't know, she said. His sensei's casual approach to missions made Naruto simply sweat. Just as he was about to speak, a rush of memories from his clones informed him that the wolves had already returned to the summoning realm, but not before one of them bit a bandit on the rump. That one isn't going to sit well for a while. He sighed as his attention returned to focus and he noticed Anko staring at him strangely. You're aware, sensei. Knowing you, I have a feeling that your goal is to take over the location and destroy it. Correct, he said, glaring at her as though he were daring her to try to refute what he had said. She gave him a sheepish smile, embarrassed to be caught at her easy scheme of devastation, and scratched the back of her head. He, how about we return to Wave and inform Kakashi of our findings? She said, perhaps old One-Eye can think of something worthwhile for us to do, before getting up and leaping back into the forest in Wave's direction. Sighing once more, Naruto shook his head and left after his sensei, but not before hearing screams of rage emanating from Gato's mansion, as if the thieving businessman had just discovered that he had been robbed.
I will continue the story in next part. Till then, we weeb offline.